The mop handle cracked against the first attacker's wrist with surgical precision. In the gleaming marble lobby of Aurora Tower, 4 armed men had surrounded CEO Victoria Lane, but they hadn't counted on the janitor. In 47 seconds, Ethan Cole would take them all down with nothing but cleaning supplies and a secret that would destroy everything Victoria thought she knew. Tonight, the invisible man in blue coveralls would reveal why sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one nobody bothers to see. If you're watching from New York, London, or anywhere around the world, drop your city in the comments. Let me know how far this story has traveled. Now, let me tell you about the night a single father with a mop changed everything. The September rain hammered against the 40-foot glass windows of Aurora Tower, turning the Chicago skyline into a watercolor painting of blurred lights and shadows. Inside the building's opulent lobby, crystal chandeliers cast golden pools across Italian marble floors that had been polished to a mirror finish. It was the kind of place where every surface whispered money, where every detail had been designed to intimidate and impress. The kind of place where people in $1,000 shoes never looked down, which meant they never saw the man pushing the mop. Ethan Cole had been invisible for 6 weeks now. It was a practiced invisibility perfected through years of training and refined through necessity. At 38, he had the kind of forgettable face that served him well, brown hair that was neither too long nor too short, eyes that shifted between green and gray depending on the light, and a build that was strong but not imposing. The blue maintenance coveralls he wore might as well have been an invisibility cloak. In a building full of people who measured worth by job titles and stock options, a janitor was less than furniture. Furniture at least had value. He guided his industrial mop across the lobby floor in smooth, practiced arcs, the rhythm as automatic as breathing. The yellow wet floor sign stood sentinel beside him, a beacon of caution that everyone ignored. They stepped around it over it sometimes through the very puddles he was cleaning their expensive shoes, leaving prints he would have to clean again. Not one of them looked at him. Not one of them saw him watching. And Ethan saw everything. He saw the way Victoria Lane's assistant Marcus always checked his phone exactly 3 times before the CEO arrived each morning, nervous tics betraying his constant anxiety. He saw how the security guards had grown lazy, their patrol patterns as predictable as clockwork, their attention more focused on their phones than their surroundings. He saw the blind spots where the cameras didn't reach the emergency exits that hadn't been tested in months, the places where shadows gathered like old secrets. But most importantly, he saw the 4 men who didn't belong. They had appeared 3 weeks ago, always in pairs, never together as a group. They wore different disguises, vendor badges, maintenance uniforms, delivery company logos, but their eyes gave them away. Those were hunters' eyes, constantly scanning, evaluating, measuring distances and obstacles. They moved with the kind of coordinated precision that came from years of training their casual movements, hiding a coiled readiness that Ethan recognized all too well. He dipped his mop into the bucket, wringing it out with deliberate slowness as he watched one of them, the tall one with the scar across his left eyebrow, pause near the executive elevator bank. The man's fingers traced along the wall, marking something invisible to anyone who wasn't looking for it. A blind spot, an approach vector, a killing ground. Ethan's hand unconsciously moved to his left wrist, fingers, finding the braided blue bracelet hidden beneath his coverall sleeve. His daughter Emma had made it for him 2 months ago, her 7-year-old fingers carefully weaving the threads together while her tongue poked out in concentration. "For protection, Daddy," she had said, her green eyes so like her mother's, serious and bright. "So you always come home?" The bracelet was the only thing about his appearance that wasn't carefully calculated for invisibility. Everything else was designed to blend in, to be forgotten the moment someone's eyes moved past him. But the bracelet stayed. It was his anchor, his reminder of why he did this, why he had taken this assignment, even though it meant long nights away from Emma, meant pretending to be something less than he was. The elevator chimed and Victoria Lane emerged. Even at 8 in the evening, she looked like she had stepped out of a boardroom photo shoot. Her white designer dress was pristine, despite the 14-hour day she had already put in. Her dark hair, pulled back in a style that managed to be both professional and elegant. Her heels clicked against the marble with metronomic precision as she moved through the lobby, her phone pressed to her ear, her free hand gesturing as she spoke. "No, Charles, that's unacceptable." she said, her voice carrying the kind of authority that came from years of being obeyed without question. The launch event is in 3 hours. I don't care if the caterers have to drive through a hurricane, they signed a contract. She walked past Ethan without a glance, her heel catching the edge of his wet floor, leaving a scuff mark he would have to clean. Again. He had tried to speak to her once 3 weeks ago when he first noticed the surveillance patterns. He had approached her in the parking garage trying to explain what he had seen, the danger he suspected. She had looked through him like he was made of glass. Security concerns should be directed to the appropriate department, she had said, not even slowing her stride. I'm sure they'll give your observations all the attention they deserve. The dismissal in her voice had been clear. What could a janitor possibly know about security threats? What could someone who pushed a mop for a living understand about the complex dangers facing a Fortune 500 CEO? Ethan had filed his report with building security anyway. It had been rejected within an hour. Unnecessary expense, the email had said. No credible threat identified. Now 3 weeks later, the 4 men were moving into position. The scarred one was by the elevator. Another shorter, built like a boxer with hands that had seen violence, stood near the main entrance, ostensibly checking his phone, but really watching the security desk. The third man, thin and nervous-looking, with wire-rimmed glasses that did nothing to hide his calculating eyes, had positioned himself near the emergency exit. And the fourth? Ethan's mop stopped moving. The fourth man was walking directly toward Victoria. This one was different from the others. Older, maybe 50, with silver streaking through his dark hair and a suit that actually fit properly. He moved with easy confidence, like someone who belonged here, his smile practiced and warm. He was the type who could talk his way past security, who could stand next to his target for 20 minutes without raising an alarm. He was the killer. Ethan had seen his type before in places where the sand never stopped blowing and the heat made everything shimmer like a mirage. The ones who got close, who smiled right until the moment they struck. The ones who made death personal. Miss Lane. The man's voice was cultured, carrying just a hint of an accent that Ethan couldn't quite place. European, maybe. Or someone who had worked very hard to sound like they were from everywhere and nowhere at once. I'm David Ashford from the Weinstein Group. I believe we have a mutual interest in the Arcadia acquisition. Victoria paused, her phone still pressed to her ear. She held up one finger weight and continued her conversation. Charles, I have to go. Handle it. She ended the call and turned to face the man, her expression professionally neutral. Mr. Ashford, I don't recall having a meeting scheduled. My apologies for the ambush, Ashford said, his smile widening just enough to show perfect white teeth. I'm only in town for the evening, and when I heard about your launch event, I thought I might catch you before the chaos begins. 5 minutes of your time, I think you'll find what I have to say very interesting. Ethan moved closer, his mop leaving wet trails across the marble. The other 3 men had shifted positions, creating a loose box around Victoria and Ashford. It was subtle, professional. Anyone watching would see only random people going about their business. But Ethan saw the trap closing. Victoria glanced at her watch, a Patek Philippe that cost more than most people made in a year. I really don't have time, Mr. Ashford. Perhaps you could schedule something with my assistant. I'm afraid this can't wait. Something in Ashford's tone changed, a subtle hardening that made Victoria's eyes narrow. You see, Ms. Lane, we need to discuss your company's recent expansions into certain international markets. Markets where your presence has become, shall we say, problematic. I don't know what you're talking about. Victoria's voice had gone cold, the CEO mask sliding into place. And frankly, I don't appreciate the Mumbai operation, Ashford said quietly. The one your board doesn't know about. The one that's been skimming technology from Zhao Industries. Victoria went very still. Ethan's grip tightened on his mop handle. He knew that stillness. It was the moment before violence, when the body made its choice between flight and fight. But Victoria had nowhere to run. The 4 men had positioned themselves perfectly, cutting off every exit without seeming to. I think, Ashford continued, his voice still pleasant, conversational, we should continue this discussion somewhere more private. My associates have a car waiting outside. I'm not going anywhere with you. Victoria's hand moved toward her purse, toward her phone, but the boxer-built man near the entrance shook his head slightly. A warning. "Oh, but you are." Ashford's smile never wavered. "You can walk out with us now quietly, and we can resolve this like civilized people. Or we can do this the hard way, and I promise you, Miss Lane, you won't enjoy that nearly as much." The lobby had maybe 20 people in it, all focused on their phones, their conversations, their own concerns. The security desk was 50 feet away, but the guard was watching a basketball game on his tablet, earbuds in. The whole thing would be over before anyone noticed something was wrong, unless someone intervened. Ethan pushed his mop bucket forward, the wheels squeaking against the marble. The sound cut through the tension like a knife through silk. All 5 of them, Victoria and the 4 men, turned to look at him. "Sorry," Ethan said, his voice pitched to carry just the right note of oblivious incompetence. "Need to clean up a spill over here. Someone dropped their coffee." He pushed the bucket between Victoria and Ashford, forcing the older man to step back. The yellow wet floor sign followed, placed with strategic precision right where the scarred man would have to move to maintain his position. "Excuse me," Victoria said, her voice sharp with irritation, and something else. Hope, maybe, or at least the recognition of an opportunity. "I need to—" "Ma'am, watch your step," Ethan said, moving his mop in wide arcs that forced everyone to shift positions, breaking up their carefully orchestrated formation. "Floor's real slippery. Wouldn't want anyone to fall." The thin man with glasses started moving closer, his hand reaching inside his jacket. Ethan pretended not to notice, but his weight shifted subtly, his grip on the mop handle adjusting. 20 pounds of industrial-grade wood and metal perfectly balanced. People always underestimated a mop. They thought of it as a cleaning tool, nothing more. They didn't think about the physics of it, the leverage, the reach, the solid weight of the handle. "You need to move along," Ashford said, his cultured voice developing an edge. "This is a private conversation." "Oh, sure, Ethan said, still playing the bumbling janitor. "Just let me get this spot right here." He swung the mop in a wide arc, sending a spray of soapy water across the boxer's expensive shoes. The man cursed, stepping back instinctively, his hand moving to his hip where a gun would be. "Watch it, you idiot," the boxer snarled. "So sorry, sir, so sorry." Ethan's voice was apologetic, but his eyes had gone cold, calculating distances and angles. 4 targets. Victoria caught in the middle. 20 civilians who would panic at the first sign of real violence. Security guards still oblivious. Cameras recording everything but help at least 3 minutes away, even if someone called now. 3 minutes was a lifetime in a fight. "Last warning," Ashford said, and now all pretense of civility was gone. "Walk away. Now." Ethan straightened slowly, his hand still on the mop handle. He looked at Ashford, then at Victoria, who was watching him with a mixture of confusion and growing alarm. She didn't recognize him as anything more than the janitor who cleaned her office, the invisible man she passed in the halls without seeing. But she was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one nobody bothers to notice. "You know," Ethan said, his voice different, now the bumbling tone replaced by something harder, more precise. "I've been watching you gentlemen for 3 weeks. You've been very professional, very careful, but you made one mistake." Ashford's eyes narrowed. "And what's that?" "You assumed the janitor was just a janitor." The transformation was instantaneous. The slouch disappeared, the shuffling gait replaced by perfect balance. The forgettable face sharpened, focused, dangerous. In one fluid motion, Ethan flipped the mop handle, the heavy wooden end, now a weapon the bucket kicked sideways to create an obstacle. "Run," he told Victoria, his voice carrying absolute command. "Now." But Victoria stood frozen, her mind trying to process what she was seeing. The janitor she had dismissed, ignored, looked through for 6 weeks, was standing between her and 4 armed men with nothing but a mop and absolutely no fear in his eyes. The boxer moved first, his hand clearing his jacket, revealing the matte black pistol underneath. Ethan's mop handle snapped up and around in a tight arc, catching the man's wrist with a crack that echoed through the lobby. The gun went spinning across the marble floor as the boxer howled, cradling his broken wrist. The thin man with glasses was already moving, pulling a knife that caught the chandelier light. Ethan pivoted, using the mop's reach advantage, the wet strings wrapping around the man's ankle. A A sharp pull sent him crashing to the floor, his glasses skittering away, the knife clattering out of reach. The scarred man came from the left, fast and low, trained in combat. Ethan met him with the bucket swinging it like a medieval flail. The impact sent soapy water exploding everywhere, but more importantly, it sent the scarred man stumbling backward, temporarily blinded. All of this had taken less than 5 seconds. People were starting to notice now. Someone screamed. Phones came out recording everything. The security guard finally looked up from his game, his mouth falling open in shock. Ashford hadn't moved. He stood perfectly still, watching Ethan with the kind of assessment that came from years of violence. His hand was inside his jacket, but he hadn't drawn his weapon yet. "Interesting," he said. "You're not really a janitor, are you?" "I'm exactly what I appear to be," Ethan replied, keeping the mop handle between them like a staff. "A man doing his job." "And what job would that be?" "Right now, making sure you don't leave this building with Ms. Lane." The boxer was getting back to his feet, his left hand reaching for a backup weapon. The thin man was crawling toward his knife. The scarred one was wiping soap from his eyes, murder in his expression. "You're outnumbered," Ashford observed, "and that mop won't stop bullets." "No," Ethan agreed, "but it doesn't have to." He smiled, then the kind of smile that had made hardened soldiers step back in places where the rules were written in blood. "You see, Mr. Ashford, you're not the only one who's been planning this. The difference is I've been planning for longer and I've got something you don't." "And what's that?" Ethan's hand found the blue bracelet on his wrist, his daughter's protection charm, and his smile widened. "I've got absolutely nothing to lose except her." He nodded toward Victoria, who was still standing frozen, her white dress a beacon in the chaos. "So here's what's going to happen. You and your men are going to walk out of here, now. Or I'm going to show everyone in this lobby and everyone watching on their phones exactly what a man with a mop can do when he stops pretending to be invisible." The lobby had gone silent except for the whisper of phones, recording the distant sound of sirens that someone had finally called and the drip of soapy water on marble. Ashford studied him for a long moment. Then he laughed low and appreciative. "You know what, I almost believe you could do it. Take down 4 armed men with nothing but cleaning supplies. It would be something to see. Try me." The tension stretched between them like a wire about to snap. The boxer's hand was on his backup gun. The thin man had his fingers on the knife. The scarred one had cleared his eyes and was reaching for something in his ankle holster. And Ethan stood in the middle of them all, a janitor with a mop protecting a CEO who didn't even know his name. 60 seconds, Ashford said suddenly. "That's how long before the police arrive. 60 seconds to finish this and disappear. We could do it. Kill you, take her, be gone before anyone processes what happened. You could try. Or," Ashford continued, "we could walk away. Postpone this conversation for another time, another place, when you're not around to interfere. I'll always be around. Will you?" Ashford's smile was cold. "Do you think she'll keep you close after this? Do you think Victoria Lane will want a janitor as her bodyguard? You'll go back to being invisible and we'll wait. We're very patient men." Ethan said nothing, but his grip on the mop handle tightened. "Tell me something," Ashford said. "What makes her worth it? What makes Victoria Lane worth risking your life when she doesn't even see you?" It was a good question. One Ethan had asked himself every day for 6 weeks, every time she walked past without acknowledgement, every time she dismissed his concerns, every time she treated him like he was part of the building itself, no more worthy of notice than a light fixture or a doorknob. "It's not about her," Ethan said finally. "It's about doing the job." "Just the job?" Ashford seemed genuinely curious. "Nothing more." Ethan thought about Emma asleep at home with the babysitter, trusting that Daddy would come home safe. He thought about the promise he had made to his wife before she died to always protect those who couldn't protect themselves. He thought about all the invisible people in the building, the other janitors, the security guards, the maintenance workers who would be caught in the crossfire if violence erupted here. "Someone has to stand between the wolves and the sheep," he said. "Might as well be the janitor." The sirens were getting closer. 30 seconds, maybe less. Ashford made his decision. He raised his hand, a clear signal to his men. The boxer reluctantly released his weapon. The thin man left his knife on the floor. The scarred one stood down, though his eyes promised this wasn't over. "Another time, then," Ashford said. He looked at Victoria, who had finally found her voice. "Who are you people?" she demanded. "What do you want?" "Ask your janitor," Ashford replied. "He seems to know more than you think." They walked out in perfect formation, professional to the end. They didn't run, didn't panic. They simply melted into the Chicago night as the first police cruiser screeched to a halt outside. Ethan lowered the mop handle, his body suddenly feeling the weight of the confrontation. His hands were steady. They always were in moments like this, but inside the adrenaline was crashing through him like a tide. Victoria turned to him, her face a mixture of shock, confusion, and something that might have been the beginning of respect. "You're not really a janitor," she said. It wasn't a question. "I really am," Ethan replied, bending to pick up his bucket. "I just happen to be good at other things too." "Who are you?" He looked at her, this woman who had ignored him for 6 weeks, who had dismissed his warnings, who had nearly paid the ultimate price for her arrogance. He could tell her the truth now. Show her the badge in his pocket, explain the investigation, reveal why he was really here. But the police were flooding in shouts and questions filling the air. Witnesses were pointing, explaining their versions of events already diverging from reality. And somewhere in the chaos, Ethan saw his supervisor from the cleaning company, his face a mask of confusion and concern. "I'm nobody," Ethan said, turning away. "Just the guy who cleans up messes." He started walking toward the supply closet, leaving Victoria standing in the middle of the lobby with soap suds at her feet and questions on her lips. But before he could disappear into the invisibility he had cultivated so carefully, her hand caught his arm. "Wait," she said. "I need to know." "No." Ethan interrupted, gently but firmly removing her hand. "You need to talk to the police. You need to figure out who those men really were and why they wanted you. You need to increase your security. Real security, not the joke you have now. But you saved my life. I did my job. Cleaning floors. Protecting people who can't protect themselves." She stared at him. And for the first time in 6 weeks, she actually saw him. Not just the uniform, not just the mop, but the man underneath. The intelligence in his eyes, the trained readiness in his stance, the careful way he positioned himself to watch every entrance, even now. "What's your name?" she asked. "Ethan," he said after a pause. "Ethan Cole." "Thank you, Ethan Cole." He nodded, then looked past her to where the police were setting up a perimeter, taking statements, trying to make sense of what had happened. His handler would want a report. The investigation was blown. There was no way he could maintain his cover after this. 6 weeks of careful work destroyed in 47 seconds of necessary violence. But Victoria Lane was alive, and 4 dangerous men had been exposed. Sometimes that had to be enough. "Ms. Lane," a police detective was calling, "we need to speak with you." She looked back at Ethan, but he was already moving away, slipping back into the role of the invisible janitor. By the time she turned back to look for him again, he had vanished into the labyrinth of service corridors and supply rooms that the important people never saw. In the supply closet, Ethan finally allowed himself a moment to breathe. His hands were shaking now, delayed reaction, the price of forcing calm during chaos. He pulled out his phone, knowing he needed to call this in, needed to report the blown cover and the attempted kidnapping. But first he looked at the blue bracelet on his wrist, Emma's protection charm, and allowed himself a small smile. "Still coming home, baby girl," he whispered. "Still coming home." The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Control." "This is Shepard," Ethan said, using his operational code name. "Cover's blown. Had to intervene." There was a pause. "Casualties?" "None. 4 hostiles exposed and withdrew. Target is secure." "Local law enforcement. On scene. They'll have questions." Another pause, longer this time. "You were supposed to observe and document Shepard, not engage. They were going to take her. That wasn't your call to make." Ethan's jaw tightened. "With respect, sir, it was exactly my call to make. That's why you put me here." A sigh crackled through the phone. "We'll send extraction in 6 hours. Maintain cover until then if possible." "Understood." "And Shepard, good work." The line went dead. Ethan tucked the phone away and looked at himself in the cracked mirror above the utility sink. 6 weeks of being invisible, of documenting every security breach, every suspicious activity, every sign of internal corruption at Aurora Corporation. He had enough evidence to bring down half the board of directors, to expose a network of corporate espionage that reached into 3 continents. But tonight, none of that mattered as much as the simple fact that Victoria Lane was alive. He picked up his mop and bucket, checking them for damage. The handle had a small crack where it had connected with the boxer's wrist, but it would hold. The bucket was dented but functional. Tools of the trade, unremarkable and overlooked but effective in the right hands. Outside the supply closet, he could hear the chaos continuing. Police radios crackling, witnesses being interviewed, theories being formed that would probably be nowhere near the truth. By morning, there would be a dozen different versions of what happened, each one more elaborate than the last. But Ethan knew the truth. 4 men had come for Victoria Lane, and a janitor had stopped them with nothing but a mop and the element of surprise. He thought about Ashford's question, what makes her worth it? The answer wasn't complicated. It wasn't about Victoria Lane specifically. It was about the principle of the thing. The strong shouldn't be allowed to prey on the weak just because they can. Those with power shouldn't be permitted to destroy those without it simply because it's convenient. Someone had to stand in the gap, even if that someone was just a janitor with a troubled past and a talent for violence. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but Ethan recognized the routing signature. Ashford. This isn't over. She has something we need. Stay out of our way, or next time we won't be so civilized. Ethan deleted the message without replying. Let them come. He had 6 hours before extraction, 6 hours to make sure Victoria Lane understood the danger she was in, 6 hours to prepare her for what was coming. He stepped out of the supply closet and immediately encountered chaos. The lobby was swarming with police, the elegant space transformed into a crime scene. Yellow tape cordoned off the area where the confrontation had occurred. Crime scene technicians were photographing everything marking the position of the weapons that had been dropped, the soap spills that had become evidence. Through it all, Victoria stood like an island of composure in her white dress, talking to what looked like a senior detective. But Ethan could see the tremor in her hands, the way she kept touching her throat, the classic signs of delayed shock. He started mopping again, working his way gradually closer, just another part of the background noise. The detective was asking her about enemies, about threats, about why someone might want to kidnap her. I don't know, Victoria was saying. I mean, yes, I have competitors, business rivals, but nothing like this, nothing violent. What about the Mumbai operation the man mentioned? The detective asked. Victoria's face went carefully blank. I don't know what he was talking about. It was a lie, and not a particularly good one. The detective knew it too, Ethan could tell, but he also knew he wouldn't push. Not here, not now, not with a CEO of Victoria's stature. That was a conversation for lawyers and boardrooms, not crime scenes. We'll need you to come to the station, the detective was saying. Make a formal statement. Of course. Just let me... Victoria turned and saw Ethan mopping steadily closer. Something flickered in her eyes. Detective, I need a moment with my employee. The detective followed her gaze, saw Ethan in his janitor's uniform, and immediately dismissed him as unimportant. Make it quick. We need to get you somewhere secure. Victoria walked over her heels, clicking on the marble with less certainty than before. She stopped just outside the reach of his mop, as if uncertain how to bridge the gap between their worlds. They'll come back, Ethan said quietly, not looking at her, continuing to mop. Tonight was just a probe. They wanted to take you quietly, make it look like you left voluntarily. Now that that's failed, they'll escalate. How do you know that? Because it's what I would do. She studied him, this man she had walked past hundreds of times without seeing. You're not really a janitor. We've established that. So what are you, private security, corporate spy, government agent? Ethan finally looked at her, meeting those sharp green eyes that had intimidated boardrooms full of executives. Does it matter? Yes, she said firmly. It matters because I need to know if I can trust you. You can't, Ethan said simply. You can't trust anyone right now. Those men knew about Mumbai. That means someone inside your organization is feeding them information, someone high enough to know about your off-the-books operations. Victoria's face paled. That's impossible. Only 3 people know about... She stopped herself. 3 people plus whoever they told, Ethan continued. Plus their assistants who might have overheard something, plus the IT people who maintain the secret servers, plus the accounting team that hides the money transfers. Secrets are like water, Ms. Lane. They always find a way to leak. You know about Mumbai. I know about a lot of things, including the fact that you're about to make a very stupid mistake. What mistake? You're about to go to the police station, make a statement that minimizes what happened here, then go home to your penthouse and pretend everything is fine. You'll increase your security, but you'll use the same company you've always used, the one that's already been compromised. You'll continue your normal routine because you don't want to show weakness. And within a week, you'll be dead. The words hit her like physical blows. You don't know. I know exactly, Ethan interrupted. I know because I've seen this pattern before. Powerful person gets threatened. Powerful person refuses to change their routine. Powerful person ends up in a body bag. Pride kills more CEOs than plane crashes. So what do you suggest? Disappear. Tonight. Go somewhere they won't expect, somewhere that's not in your normal pattern. Change everything, your routes, your schedule, your communications, and find someone you trust absolutely to help you figure out who's betraying you from the inside. I don't have anyone like that. Then you're already dead. The brutality of the statement made her step back. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to save your life. Again. She looked around the lobby at the police and the witnesses and the evidence of violence that had erupted in her perfectly controlled world. When she looked back at Ethan, there was something different in her expression. Not just fear or gratitude, but a kind of desperate calculation. Help me, she said suddenly. I already did. No, I mean really help me. You obviously know how to handle yourself. You saw those men coming when my entire security team missed them. You know about Mumbai, which means you've been investigating me, which means you probably know more about my company's vulnerabilities than I do. Ethan kept mopping the rhythmic motion, helping him think. This wasn't part of the plan. He was supposed to extract in 6 hours, file his report, and move on to the next assignment. Getting personally involved with a target was against every protocol, every rule that had kept him alive through 15 years of intelligence work. But he thought about Emma, about the promise to always come home, and realized that sometimes staying alive wasn't the same as doing the right thing. I can't be your bodyguard, he said finally. That's not who I am. Then be my janitor, Victoria said, and there was something almost like humor in her voice. Be the invisible man who sees everything. Help me figure out who's trying to kill me and why. And in return, I don't ask questions about who you really are or why you've been spying on my company. It was a good offer, better than she knew, since those were questions he couldn't answer without destroying several ongoing federal investigations. But there was one problem. I have a daughter, he said. 7 years old. Whatever I do, it can't put her at risk. I can protect her. No. The word came out harder than he intended. You can't even protect yourself. My daughter stays out of this completely. Victoria nodded slowly. Then what do you need? Time. I need 6 hours to make arrangements to ensure she's safe. Then I'll help you, but we do it my way. No arguments, no CEO power plays, no treating me like the help. You are the help, she pointed out, and that's why I'm still alive while your regular security is useless. She couldn't argue with that. 6 hours. Then what? Then we disappear. Both of us. We go dark while I figure out who wants you dead and why. I can't just disappear. I have a company to run a launch event tonight. The launch event is in 2 hours and you're not going. That's impossible. There are 500 guests, major investors, and at least 4 people who want to kidnap or kill you. You walk into that ballroom tonight, you won't walk out. She started to protest again, then stopped. The reality of the situation was finally sinking in. Her perfect controlled world had been shattered by 4 men and a janitor with a mop. Miss Lane, the detective was calling. We need to go. 6 hours, Victoria said to Ethan. Then I'm trusting you with my life. You already did, he reminded her. Try not to forget that. She walked back to the detective, her composure reassembling itself with each step. By the time she reached him, she was once again the untouchable CEO, the woman who could handle anything. But Ethan had seen behind the mask. He had seen the fear, the vulnerability, the human being underneath the corporate armor. And despite his better judgment, despite all his training and experience, he found himself caring about what happened to her. He pulled out his phone and typed a quick message to his handler. Need emergency extraction for one, non-negotiable. The response was almost immediate, negative. Mission parameters don't include. Ethan deleted the message without reading the rest. He had made his decision. Victoria Lane needed help, and he was possibly the only person in Chicago who could provide it. The investigation, the evidence he had gathered, the federal case, all of it would have to wait. Because sometimes the job wasn't about following orders or completing missions. Sometimes it was about standing between the wolves and the sheep, even when the sheep didn't appreciate it. He finished mopping the lobby, then headed for the service elevator. He had 6 hours to make arrangements to ensure Emma was safe to transform from Ethan Cole, the janitor, into someone who could keep Victoria Lane alive. 6 hours to prepare for a war he hadn't planned on fighting. As the elevator doors closed, he touched the blue bracelet on his wrist one more time. "Still coming home, baby girl," he whispered. "Just might take a little longer than expected." The service elevator descended into the underground parking garage with a mechanical groan that echoed through the shaft. Ethan checked his watch 5 hours and 43 minutes until he had promised to return. The federal handlers would be furious when they realized he'd gone off book, but that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight's problem was keeping Victoria Lane alive long enough to figure out who wanted her dead. The parking garage was a concrete cavern, fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows between the rows of expensive cars. Ethan's vehicle was parked in the far corner away from the security cameras, a habit that had saved his life more than once. It wasn't much to look at a 10-year-old Honda Civic with rust spots and a dented bumper, the kind of car that was invisible in traffic. But under the hood, it had been modified with an engine that could outrun most police cruisers, and the trunk held equipment that would make a SWAT team envious. He was halfway to the car when he heard footsteps behind him. Not the click of heels or the shuffle of tired workers heading home, but the deliberate placement of someone trying to move quietly. Ethan didn't turn around, didn't change his pace. He simply shifted the mop handle in his grip and listened. 2 sets of footsteps, moving in coordination, professional. "Mr. Cole," a woman's voice called out. Not Victoria. Someone younger with a slight accent he couldn't quite place. "We need to talk." Ethan stopped but didn't turn. "The building's closed for the night. Police orders." "We're not here about the building." Now he turned slowly, keeping his hands visible but ready. 2 people stood 20 feet away, carefully positioned to cut off his escape routes. The woman was Asian, maybe 30, wearing a designer suit that didn't quite hide the weapon under her left arm. The man beside her was older Caucasian, built like a boxer gone to seed, but still dangerous. "Let me guess," Ethan said. "You're not really here about the janitor job opening." The woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "My name is Chen. This is Morrison. We represent certain interests that are concerned about tonight's events." "Certain interests? That's beautifully vague." "We know who you are, Mr. Cole, or should I say Agent Shepard." Ethan's expression didn't change, but internally alarms were screaming. His federal cover was blown. These people had sources inside the government, which meant this was bigger than a simple kidnapping attempt. "I think you have me confused with someone else," he said. "I'm just a janitor." "A janitor who took down 4 trained operatives with a mop." Morrison spoke for the first time, his voice gravely damaged. "A janitor who's been documenting every aspect of Aurora Corporation's operations for 6 weeks. A janitor whose daughter is currently at 4257 North Lakewood Avenue with a babysitter named Rosa Martinez." The mention of Emma hit Ethan like a physical blow, but he kept his face neutral. They knew about his daughter. They knew where she was. The game had just changed completely. "What do you want?" he asked, dropping all pretense. "We want Victoria Lane," Chen said simply. "She has something that belongs to our employers, something she stole from the Mumbai operation." "I don't know anything about that." "Of course not. But you're going to help her disappear in approximately 5.5 hours. When you do, you're going to bring her to us instead." "And if I refuse?" Morrison pulled out his phone, showed Ethan a live video feed. Emma was in her bedroom reading a book, completely unaware of the camera watching her. Rosa was in the kitchen making what looked like hot chocolate. "Cute kid," Morrison said. "Be a shame if something happened to her." The rage that flooded through Ethan was ice cold, the kind that had made him legendary in certain circles. But he couldn't afford rage right now. Emma's safety was all that mattered. "If you touch her, we won't have to," Chen interrupted, "because you're going to do exactly what we say. You're going to deliver Victoria Lane to us, and then you and your daughter are going to disappear. New identities, new life, far away from here. We'll even throw in enough money to make it comfortable." "How do I know you'll keep your word?" "You don't. But what choice do you have?" It was a good question. Ethan ran through the options in his mind. He could kill them both right now. He was confident he could do it even with just the mop handle, but that wouldn't stop whoever was watching Emma. He could try to play along, buy time, to figure out their organization. Or he could do what they asked and hope they kept their word. None of the options were good. "I need proof she has what you're looking for," he said finally. "I'm not delivering an innocent woman to her death." "She's hardly innocent," Chen said. "The technology she stole from Mumbai has resulted in 12 deaths so far. Industrial accidents, they called them. But we know better." "What technology?" "That's not your concern. Your concern is your daughter." Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from Rosa. "Emma's asking when you'll be home. Should I put her to bed?" The normalcy of it, the everyday concern of a babysitter, made the situation even more surreal. His little girl was waiting for him, trusting him to come home, while strangers watched her through hidden cameras. 5 hours, he said. "I need 5 hours to set things up." "You have 3, Chen countered. "And Mr. Cole." "Don't try to be clever. We have people everywhere. The moment you deviate from the plan, the moment you try to warn anyone, your daughter pays the price." They walked away, leaving Ethan standing alone in the parking garage with his mop and his rage. He waited until he heard their car leave, then pulled out his phone. Not his regular phone, that was certainly compromised. This was a burner he kept for emergencies, one that even his federal handlers didn't know about. He dialed a number from memory. It rang once. "Yeah?" The voice was rough, tired, suspicious. "Marcus, it's Shepard." There was a pause. "Jesus Christ, Ethan. That's a name I haven't heard in 3 years. Thought you were dead." "Might be soon. I need an extraction. My daughter. Tonight." "What kind of trouble are you in?" "The kind that watches little girls through bedroom cameras." Marcus cursed creatively in 3 languages. "How many bodies?" "None yet, but that might change." "Give me the address." Ethan rattled off his home address, then added, "There's a babysitter, Rosa Martinez. She's innocent, but they might have leverage on her too." "I'll handle it. Where do you want the package delivered?" "Safe House 7. You remember it? That shithole in Wisconsin?" "Yeah, I remember. You sure it's still secure?" "It better be. I paid for 10 years in advance." "This is going to cost you." "I know." "I don't mean money, Ethan. You're calling in your last marker. After this, we're even. You understand?" "I understand. 2 hours. I'll have her there in 2 hours." The line went dead. Ethan stood in the parking garage for another moment, calculating odds and angles. Marcus was good, former Delta Force turned private contractor. If anyone could extract Emma without triggering Chen's watchers, it was him. But it was still a risk. Everything was a risk now. He got in his car and drove back to his apartment, taking a deliberately obvious route. Let them watch. Let them think he was complying. He parked in his usual spot and walked up to his unit like nothing was wrong, even waving to Mrs. Patterson from 3B, who was walking her ancient poodle. Inside, Rosa looked up from the kitchen table where she was doing homework. "Mr. Cole, I wasn't expecting you for hours." "Got off early, what?" he said, forcing a smile. "How's Emma?" "Perfect angel as always. She finished her homework, ate all her dinner, and she's in her room reading. Although," Rosa frowned slightly. "She seemed worried about something, kept asking if you were okay." Kids always knew. They could sense when something was wrong, even when adults tried to hide it. Ethan walked down the hallway to Emma's room, knocked gently on the door, decorated with hand-drawn butterflies and glittery stars. "Daddy?" Her voice was small, uncertain. He opened the door to find her sitting on her bed, surrounded by stuffed animals and books. She was wearing her favorite pajamas, the ones with rockets and planets, and her dark hair was pulled back in the braids Rosa had done for her. "Hey, baby girl." She launched herself at him, arms wrapping around his waist with desperate strength. "I was worried." "Why were you worried?" "I don't know, just felt funny, like when Mommy was sick." Ethan's heart broke a little. Sarah had been gone for 2 years now, taken by cancer that moved faster than any enemy he'd ever faced. Emma had been 5, old enough to remember, young enough that the memories were starting to fade. "Everything's okay," he lied, holding her tight. "But hey, you know what? You're going to go on an adventure tonight." She pulled back, looking up at him with those green eyes that were so like her mother's. "An adventure. Remember Uncle Marcus? He's going to take you to the special cabin, the one with the lake, the one where we went fishing. That's the one. You're going to stay there for a few days, like camping. But what about school? It's a special holiday, just for you." She studied his face with that intense focus children had when they knew adults weren't telling them everything. "Are you coming too?" "I'll be there soon. I just have to finish some work first." "Is it dangerous work?" He couldn't lie to her, not completely. "A little bit, but you know what protects me?" She touched the blue bracelet on his wrist. "My protection charm. That's right. As long as I have this, I'll always come home to you. Promise. Promise." There was a knock at the apartment door, 3 short, 2 long, Marcus's signal. "That's Uncle Marcus now," Ethan said, trying to keep his voice light. "Go grab your backpack, the one we packed for emergencies." Emma nodded solemnly and went to her closet, pulling out the go bag they had prepared together. It was a game they played, he had told her, being ready for adventures. Inside was everything she would need for a week. Clothes, toiletries, her favorite stuffed bear, and a photo of the 3 of them from before Sarah got sick. Marcus was waiting in the living room, and he looked exactly the same as he had 3 years ago. 6'4", built like a linebacker with scars that told stories he'd never share. But his eyes softened when he saw Emma. "Hey there, little warrior," he said, dropping to one knee. "Ready for an adventure?" "Uncle Marcus?" She hugged him, then looked back at Ethan. "Daddy has dangerous work." "I know." Marcus said, his eyes meeting Ethan's over her head. "That's why I'm going to keep you extra safe until he's done." Rosa was packing up her things, confused, but not questioning. Ethan handed her $300. "For your trouble. Take a few days off." "Is everything okay, Mr. Cole?" "Family emergency, nothing to worry about." She left, and Ethan knew that Chen's people were probably already following her. But Rosa didn't know anything, couldn't tell them anything. She was just collateral damage in a game she didn't even know was being played. 2 minutes, Marcus said quietly. "Then we need to move." Ethan knelt in front of Emma, memorizing her face. "I love you more than all the stars in the sky." "And I love you more than all the fish in the sea," she replied, completing their ritual. "Be good for Uncle Marcus." "Be safe, Daddy." And then they were gone. Marcus carrying her backpack, his other hand resting casually near the concealed weapon under his jacket. Ethan watched from the window as they got into a nondescript van and drove away. No one followed. Chen's people were either very good at surveillance or they were letting Emma go. He hoped it was the latter, but planned for the former. His phone rang. Not the burner, his regular phone. Victoria Lane's name appeared on the screen. "Ms. Lane." "They let me go." Her voice was shaky, exhausted. "The police. They took my statement and let me go. But Mr. Cole, Ethan, I don't feel safe. There are cars outside my building that weren't there before. People watching." "Where are you exactly?" "In my penthouse, 32nd floor. I canceled the launch event, told everyone I had food poisoning. The board is furious, but listen carefully to..." Ethan interrupted. "In exactly 1 hour, you're going to receive a delivery. A large package that requires your personal signature. When it arrives, you're going to tell your security that it's confidential documents from the Mumbai office. You're going to take it into your home office alone. Do you understand? What kind of package? The kind that will keep you alive. 1 hour. Be ready." He hung up and got to work. The apartment transformed from a simple living space into an operational center. He pulled equipment from hidden compartments, weapons, communications gear, surveillance countermeasures. The mop handle unscrewed to reveal a blade that could cut through body armor. The bucket had a false bottom hiding flashbang grenades. Everything a janitor needed for a very bad night. He called Marcus on the burner. Package secure. 15 minutes out from safe house. No tail. Anyone try to stop you? 2 cars showed interest. They're not interested anymore. Ethan didn't ask for details. Marcus had his ways, and they usually involved other cars ending up in ditches. Chen and Morrison, you know them? Chen's Chinese intelligence, probably MSS. Freelances on the side. Morrison's former CIA went private 5 years ago after that thing in Syria. If they're working together, someone's paying serious money. Any idea who? Could be anyone. Corporations, governments, crime syndicates. The Mumbai tech must be worth billions. What do you know about it? Just rumors. Something about quantum encryption. The kind of thing that could break any security system in the world, or make one that's absolutely unbreakable. Either way, it's a game changer. That explained why everyone wanted it, and why they were willing to kill for it. Marcus, I need one more thing. You're pushing it, Shepard. I know, but I need you to check on someone. Rosa Martinez, my babysitter. Make sure she gets home safe. Christ, you're going soft. Maybe. Fine. But after this, we're done. You understand? No more favors, no more midnight calls. Done. I understand. Ethan hung up and began his transformation. The janitor coveralls came off, replaced by tactical gear that would make him harder to identify and harder to kill. Body armor went under a nondescript jacket. Weapons were distributed across his body in a pattern that had become second nature. The knife from the mop handle went into an ankle sheath. He looked at himself in the mirror. The forgettable janitor was gone. In his place stood someone harder, more dangerous. Someone who had done terrible things in terrible places and was about to do them again. His regular phone buzzed. A text from Chen. 2 hours remaining. Don't disappoint us. He deleted it and pulled out a different phone, one he'd taken from the scarred attacker during the lobby fight. The man hadn't noticed in the chaos, too focused on the soap in his eyes. Ethan scrolled through the messages, finding what he was looking for. A series of texts about Victoria, her schedule, her security arrangements. But more interesting were the photos. Pictures of documents classified Aurora Corporation files about the Mumbai project. And they weren't taken by an outsider. The angle, the lighting, the access, these were taken by someone inside Victoria's inner circle. One photo showed a reflection in a computer screen. It was blurry, but Ethan could make out enough. A face he recognized. Someone Victoria trusted completely. Son of a bitch, he muttered. The betrayal went deeper than anyone realized, and Victoria was about to walk right into it. He grabbed his gear and headed for the door, then stopped. On Emma's art table was her latest drawing, a man in blue holding a mop like a sword, standing in front of a woman in white. She had titled it, My Daddy, the Hero, in her careful 7-year-old handwriting. Ethan folded it carefully and put it in his pocket, a reminder of what he was fighting for. The drive to Victoria's building took 20 minutes. He parked 3 blocks away and approached on foot, noting the surveillance Chen had mentioned. 2 cars with tinted windows. A van that was trying too hard to look like a delivery vehicle. At least one spotter on the roof of the building across the street. They were good, but they were obvious if you knew what to look for, which meant they wanted to be seen. They wanted Victoria scared off balance, ready to make mistakes. Ethan entered through the loading dock using the maintenance codes he'd memorized weeks ago. The night security guard barely looked up from his magazine. Just another invisible worker doing invisible work. The service elevator took him to the 31st floor. From there he accessed the maintenance shaft that ran between floors. It was a tight fit with all his gear, but it was also completely off the security grid. In his 6 weeks of reconnaissance, he'd mapped every blind spot in the building. He emerged in Victoria's laundry room, dust and insulation in his hair, but otherwise silent. The penthouse was enormous, 5,000 square feet of marble and glass, and contemporary art that cost more than most people's houses. But it was also a trap. One way in through the private elevator windows that didn't open, no secondary exits except the emergency stairs that were certainly being watched. Victoria was in her office staring at her computer screen. She changed out of the white dress into jeans and a sweater, looking more human than he'd ever seen her. When he appeared in her doorway, she nearly screamed. "Jesus, how did you—" "Questions later," he said, moving to the window. The spotter was still there, scope glinting in the streetlight. "We have maybe 40 minutes before they realize I'm here." Before who realizes Ethan what's going on? He turned to face her decision time. Tell her the truth and risk her reaction, or keep her in the dark and risk her making a fatal mistake. The men who tried to take you tonight, they want something you took from Mumbai. Quantum encryption technology. Her face went pale. How do you know about that? Because everyone knows about it. Chinese intelligence, private military contractors, probably half the criminal organizations in the world. You stole something that could destabilize global security, and now everyone wants it. I didn't steal anything. It was developed by my company, using research taken from a Chinese laboratory, research that was itself stolen from an American defense contractor, who probably stole it from the Russians. That's how this game works, Ms. Lane. There's no clean ownership, just whoever has it last. She sank into her chair. Mr. Ashford, the man, tonight he said people had died. 12 so far. The Chinese research team, they were eliminated to prevent them from recreating the technology. Oh God. Where is it? The encryption key or whatever it is? She looked at him sharply. Why? So you can take it. So I can keep you alive. They think you have it as long as they believe that you're valuable. The moment they learn otherwise, I don't have it. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. What do you mean you don't have it? I mean, it's not here. It's not in some vault or safety deposit box. The technology, it's not a device or a program. It's an algorithm, a mathematical proof that only exists in one place. Where, she tapped her temple. Here, in the head of the person who actually created it. Who? Dr. James Park, my chief technology officer. He memorized the entire algorithm, then destroyed all records of it. He said it was too dangerous to exist in any form that could be stolen. Ethan processed this information, puzzle pieces clicking into place. Park's the one who betrayed you. That's impossible. James has been with me for 10 years. He's like family. He's the one who told them about Mumbai. He's been feeding them information, probably promised them the algorithm in exchange for something. But then he realized he could get more by playing all sides. You're wrong. Ethan pulled out the phone he'd taken, showed her the photos. Look at the reflection in this one. She stared at the blurry image, and he saw the moment she recognized it. The moment her world shifted again. James, she whispered. He set you up, made you the target so he could disappear with the technology. Everyone's hunting you while he gets away clean. But he was at the launch event tonight. He called to check on me after... She stopped, understanding dawning. He wanted to make sure I was still alive, still drawing attention. Where is he now? I don't know. He said he was going home, but... Ethan was already moving, checking his equipment, formulating a plan. We need to find him before Chen does. Chen? Chinese intelligence. She gave me 3 hours to deliver you to her. That was 90 minutes ago. You were going to hand me over. They have leverage. Had leverage. It's been neutralized. Victoria stood up, anger flashing in her eyes. You were going to trade me? I was going to protect my daughter, Ethan said flatly. That's my first priority. Always. But she's safe now, which means I can focus on keeping you alive. Why do you care what happens to me? It was the same question Ashford had asked. The same question he'd been asking himself. Because someone has to, he said finally. Because you're in over your head and you don't even know how deep the water is. Because despite being an arrogant, dismissive executive who treats people like furniture, you don't deserve to die for Park's greed. She flinched at the description but didn't argue. So what do? We find Park before anyone else does, and we make him give up the algorithm. He won't. He'd die first. He believes it's his life's work, his legacy. Then he'll die. But first he'll talk. The coldness in Ethan's voice made her step back. You're not really federal agent, are you? I am, just not the kind you're thinking of. What kind? The kind they send when diplomacy fails and war isn't an option. The kind that doesn't officially exist. His phone buzzed. Marcus, package delivered. Secondary package also secure. Rosa was safe. Emma was safe. Now he could focus. Get dressed, he told Victoria. Dark clothes, comfortable shoes, nothing that makes noise when you move. Where are we going? To find your friend James before he gets you killed. She started to move toward her bedroom, then stopped. Ethan, thank you for saving my life. Twice now. Don't thank me yet. The night's not over. As she left to change, Ethan stared out at the city lights, at the watchers in their cars, at the trap that was closing around them. Chen would realize soon that he'd gone off script. Ashford's team was still out there, probably regrouping, and Park was somewhere in the city with information that could shift the balance of global power. He touched Emma's drawing in his pocket, feeling the carefully folded paper. Then he pulled out his phone and typed a message to Chen. Change of plans. If you want the technology, meet me at the Millennium Park Pavilion in 1 hour. Come alone. The response was immediate. If this is a trick, your daughter dies. My daughter's beyond your reach, but Park isn't. 1 hour, or I give him to Ashford. He didn't wait for a response. The game had changed. He wasn't playing defense anymore. Victoria returned wearing black jeans and a dark jacket, her hair pulled back, looking nothing like the CEO who commanded boardrooms. She looked younger, vulnerable, human. How do we get out? She asked. They're watching all the exits. Ethan smiled the kind of smile that would have worried anyone who knew his history. We don't go out. We go up. Up? You have a helicopter pad on your roof. I don't have a helicopter. No, but your neighbor does. Mr. Yamamoto, the Japanese consul. He keeps a Bell 407 up there for emergencies. That's theft. That's survival. Can you fly it? What? No, of course not. Then it's a good thing I can. She stared at him. How many things are you good at exactly? You don't want to know. He led her to the stairs, bypassing the elevator that would announce their movement. They climbed in silence, Ethan listening for any sound of pursuit. The building was quiet. Most of the ultra-wealthy residents gone for the evening or traveling. The door to the roof was supposed to be locked, but Ethan had taken care of that weeks ago, filing down the mechanism so it would look secure but open with the right pressure. They emerged into the Chicago night wind, whipping across the rooftop, the city spread out below them like a circuit board. The helicopter sat on the pad, sleek, and white diplomatic flags on the tail. This is insane, Victoria said. This is Tuesday, Ethan replied, already moving toward the aircraft. That's when the first shot rang out. The bullet sparked off the concrete 2 feet from Victoria's head, sending chips flying into the night air. Ethan grabbed her, pulling her behind the helicopter's landing gear as 2 more shots followed the suppressed rounds, making soft thuds as they hit the aircraft's fuselage. Stay down, he hissed, scanning the surrounding rooftops. The shooter was on the building to the north, probably the same spotter he'd seen earlier. Professional placement, good angle, but the wind at this height was playing havoc with accuracy. They're shooting at us, Victoria said, her voice surprisingly steady despite the circumstances. They're shooting at you, Ethan corrected. I'm just in the way. He pulled out his phone, did a quick calculation of angles and distances. The shooter had them pinned, but only as long as they stayed near the helicopter. The moment they tried to reach the access door, they'd be exposed. Unless... Can you get to the pilot's seat? He asked Victoria, while someone's shooting at us. The angle's wrong. He can't hit you if you stay low and go around the other side. I need you to start the pre-flight sequence. I told you I can't fly. You don't need to fly it. Just start it. Big red button on the console, then flip every switch that's lit up. Can you do that? She nodded, fear and determination warring in her eyes. What are you going to do? What I'm good at. He gave her a push, and she scrambled around the helicopter's nose, using the aircraft as cover. The shooter fired twice more, trying to track her movement, but the rounds went wide. Ethan counted the seconds, measuring the shooter's rhythm. Most snipers followed patterns, especially under pressure. This one was firing every 3 to 4 seconds, taking time to readjust for wind. The helicopter's engine began to whine rotors, starting their slow initial rotation. The noise would draw attention, but it would also mask other sounds, like the sound of Ethan sprinting across the rooftop. He broke from cover between shots, running low and fast toward the maintenance shed on the far side of the roof. The shooter tried to track him, but Ethan had timed it perfectly. By the time the next round came, he was already behind the shed, breathing hard but intact. From his new position, he could see the muzzle flash on the opposite building. 6th-floor corner apartment. The shooter was using a bathroom window, probably thinking the small opening would provide better cover. It was a rookie mistake. Small openings limited escape routes. Ethan pulled out the phone he'd taken from the scarred attacker and scrolled through the contacts. There it was, Overwatch. He hit dial. "Position compromised," he said in Russian-accented English, pitching his voice differently. "Targets escaping via helicopter. Need immediate backup." "Who is this? Where's Dmitri?" "Dmitri's down. The janitor got him. Just get here." He hung up before they could ask more questions. The confusion wouldn't last long, but it might be enough. Already he could hear sirens in the distance. Someone had reported the gunfire. The helicopter's rotors were picking up speed, the downwash starting to affect visibility. Victoria was still in the pilot seat, and from her frantic movement she was hitting every button she could find. The navigation lights came on then, the searchlight which swept across the rooftop like a prison break scene. Another shot, this one hitting the helicopter's tail section. The shooter was getting desperate, taking riskier shots. That meant he'd been ordered to stop them at all costs. Ethan made his decision. He pulled out the compact Glock he'd taken from his apartment. Arsenal checked the magazine 15 rounds and did the math. Distance to the shooter approximately 200 yards. Effective range of the Glock 50 yards for accurate fire. Wind speed at this height gusting to 20 miles per hour. It was an impossible shot, which meant the shooter wouldn't expect it. He stepped out from behind the shed and started firing. Not at the shooter, that would have been pointless, but at the windows around him. Glass shattered, the sound carrying across the night. The psychological effect was immediate. The sniper pulled back, self-preservation overriding his mission. "Now!" Ethan shouted to Victoria. "Get in the passenger seat!" She scrambled over as he ran for the helicopter, diving through the open door as another shot cracked past. He grabbed the controls muscle memory from 100 missions taking over. The aircraft was already warmed up, Victoria's button pushing having accidentally completed most of the startup sequence. "Buckle up," he said, pulling on the collective. The helicopter lifted off just as the roof access door burst open. 3 men emerged, weapons raised, but it was too late. They were already 20 feet up and climbing the Chicago night spreading out below them. "Oh God, oh God, oh God!" Victoria was chanting, gripping her seat with white knuckles. "You're fine," Ethan said, banking hard to the left to avoid any potential rocket-propelled grenades. "Just don't look down." "Where are we going?" "First we're going to make them think we're heading for the airport, then we're going to disappear." He flew low, threading between buildings, using the urban landscape as cover. The helicopter wasn't made for this kind of flying, but it was responding well enough. Behind them he could see lights, police probably, though Chen's people might have their own aircraft. His phone buzzed. "Chen, very clever, but you just signed your death warrant." He handed the phone to Victoria. "Text her back. Tell her Park's at the Millennium Park Pavilion. Tell her she has 30 minutes before Ashford gets there." "But that's not true." "No, but she doesn't know that. And neither does Ashford, who's certainly monitoring her communications." Victoria typed the message, her fingers shaking slightly. "You're playing them against each other. While we go after the real prize. Park. Park." Ethan banked right, heading toward the lake. Where would he go if he knew everyone was hunting him? Where would he feel safe? Victoria thought about it. His boat! He has a yacht moored at Belmont Harbor, the Quantum Leap. He practically lives on it during the summer. Of course he named it that. Ethan adjusted their heading. How big? 60-footer, full electronic suite, satellite communication, the works. He could run his entire operation from there. And sail to international waters if things got hot. You think he's planning to run? I think he's been planning this for months. The betrayal, the misdirection, making you the target. He's probably already transferred his money offshore, set up new identities. All he needs is to get 12 miles out, and he's in international waters. The harbor appeared below them, hundreds of boats bobbing in their slips. Ethan brought the helicopter down low, skimming just above the water. The move was illegal and dangerous, but it would keep them off civilian radar. There, Victoria pointed, slip 47. The big one with the blue hull. Ethan could see it lit up like a Christmas tree. Park was definitely aboard, and from the activity on deck, he was preparing to leave. Two men were working on the mooring lines while Park himself was visible in the wheelhouse. He's got security, Ethan noted. Professional by the look of them. James always traveled with bodyguards, said it was necessary given the sensitive nature of his work. More likely he knew this day would come. Ethan brought the helicopter around looking for a place to land. The harbor parking lot was too exposed, but there was a small park nearby, dark and empty at this hour. He sat down between two rows of trees, the rotors whipping branches into a frenzy. "Stay here," he told Victoria, shutting down the engine. "Like hell, James betrayed me. I'm coming with you." "You're a liability. You have no training. I have something better. I have his trust. Whatever he's become, he still thinks of me as a friend. I can get close. Or he'll shoot you the moment you appear. Then why hasn't he run already? He knows I'm alive, knows I'm a target. If he wanted me dead, he could have arranged it, but he didn't." She had a point. Park's behavior didn't fit someone who wanted Victoria eliminated. It fit someone who was using her as a distraction, but didn't necessarily want her dead. "Fine," Ethan said. "But we do this my way. No heroics, no confrontations. We get on the boat, we get the algorithm, we get out." And James? Depends on how cooperative he is. They left the helicopter and moved through the park toward the harbor. The night had turned cold autumn, asserting itself with a wind that cut through their jackets. The marina was quiet, except for the sound of water lapping against hulls and the occasional clink of rigging against masts. Ethan counted 3 guards visible on Park's yacht, one at the stern, one at the bow, and one moving between them. Professional positioning overlapping fields of fire, but they were watching the dock, not the water. "Can you swim?" he asked Victoria. "In October in Lake Michigan." "So that's a no." "I can swim. I just prefer not to get hypothermia." "Stay here." He handed her his phone. "If I'm not back in 10 minutes, call this number." He showed her Marcus's contact. "Tell him everything." "Where are you going?" But he was already moving, slipping down to the water's edge. The cold hit him like a physical blow when he entered, but he'd been in worse. He swam with smooth, quiet strokes, using the pier pilings as cover. The guards never looked down. People rarely did. He reached the yacht's stern and found what he was looking for. The dive platform lowered for easy access. Park probably used it for swimming in the summer. Now it would be his entry point. Ethan pulled himself up slowly, water streaming off his tactical gear. The guard at the stern was 6 feet away, looking out at the parking lot. Ethan moved like a shadow, his footsteps silent on the teak deck. The chokehold was quick and efficient, the guard unconscious before he knew what was happening. Ethan zip-tied him and moved forward. The second guard was trickier positioned midship with good sight lines, but the yacht's superstructure created blind spots, and Ethan had been exploiting blind spots his entire career. He waited for the guard to turn, then struck. A knee to the solar plexus, an elbow to the temple, and the man was down. The third guard must have sensed something because he was already turning, hand reaching for his weapon. Ethan threw the knife from his ankle sheath, the blade catching the man in the shoulder. Not fatal, but enough to stop him from raising an alarm. A second later, Ethan was on him, applying a sleeper hold until the man went limp. 3 down, 30 seconds elapsed. He found Park in the main salon, sitting at a mahogany table covered in laptops and documents. The man looked older than his 53 years, gray-haired, disheveled eyes red from lack of sleep. He was typing frantically, probably trying to transfer the last of his assets. "Hello, James," Ethan said. Park spun around, nearly falling off his chair. "Who, you're the janitor? From Aurora?" "I'm a lot of things." "Victoria sent you." "Victoria's dead." Ethan lied, watching Park's reaction. The color drained from the man's face. "No, that's not... I made sure she'd be protected. The security, the warnings. You made her a target. Everyone's hunting her while you sail away with your algorithm. It wasn't supposed to happen like this." Park's hands were shaking. "The technology, it's too dangerous. Whoever controls it controls everything, banking, defense, communications. I couldn't let any government have it." "So you decided to auction it to the highest bidder?" "No. I was going to destroy it, all of it. But then they came, Chen Ashford, others. They knew what I'd created. They threatened everyone I cared about." "So you gave them Victoria instead?" I gave them a distraction. She was supposed to be protected. Her security that you deliberately weakened by recommending budget cuts. Park's guilty expression was all the confirmation Ethan needed. The algorithm, Ethan said. Give it to me and this ends. I can't. It's not written down anywhere. It only exists in your head. I know, so start talking. It would take hours to explain, the mathematical proofs alone. Then we better get started. That's when Victoria walked in, very much alive and very angry. Park's reaction was immediate and dramatic. He stumbled backward, knocking over his laptop, his face cycling through relief, confusion, and fear. Hello, James, Victoria said, her voice cold enough to frost the windows. Victoria, you're alive. Thank God. You thought I was dead because that's what you planned. Make me the target, let them kill me, then disappear with your precious algorithm. No, I would never. Stop lying. The fury in her voice made both men step back. 10 years, James. 10 years we've built this company together. I trusted you with everything. I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself. She moved closer, and Ethan saw something in her hand. A small recorder, the kind investigators used. I've been recording everything. Your confession to him, your admission of guilt. That won't hold up in court. I'm not taking you to court, James. I'm taking you to them. Before Ethan could stop her, she'd pulled out a phone and hit send on a pre-typed message. Chen Ashford and 3 other interested parties now know exactly where you are. Park went white. You just killed us all. No, James. I just gave you a choice. Give us the algorithm, all of it, or explain to 5 different kill teams why you've been playing them against each other. You don't understand what you're asking. The algorithm, it's not just encryption. It's a new form of mathematics. It could revolutionize computing, make current technology obsolete. In the wrong hands. In anyone's hands, Ethan interrupted. It's too dangerous to exist. Both Victoria and Park looked at him in surprise. You want to destroy it? Victoria asked. I want to control it long enough to destroy it properly. No copies, no partial records, no way to reconstruct it. That's impossible, Park said. Even if I gave you the complete algorithm, others have pieces. The Chinese have the theoretical framework. The Russians have the application protocols. The Americans have me, Ethan said, and I'm telling you, we're going to burn it all. Who are you? Park demanded. Someone who's seen what happens when weapons get too powerful for humans to control responsibly. Sirens were approaching. Multiple vehicles coming fast. 5 minutes, Ethan said. Maybe less. Park looked between them, then at his computers. I can't. Even if I wanted to, the algorithm would take hours to fully explain. Then give us something, Victoria said. Something to buy time. Park was sweating now, despite the cold night air coming through the open door. There's a kill switch. A mathematical contradiction built into the algorithm. If you introduce it into any system using the encryption, it causes a cascade failure. What kind of kill switch? A number. A specific prime number that I discovered. It's the mathematical equivalent of dividing by 0. It makes the entire system impossible. Give it to us. Park grabbed a piece of paper, started writing. His hand was shaking so badly the numbers were barely legible. This has to be entered exactly. 1 digit wrong and it won't work. The sirens were getting closer. Through the window, Ethan could see lights approaching from multiple directions. Not just police, too coordinated for that. We need to go, he said. Wait. Park grabbed Victoria's arm. I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. She looked at him for a long moment, then pulled free. I know, James. That's the saddest part. They left him there surrounded by his computers and his guilt. Outside, the marina had become a convergence point. Vehicles screeching to a halt, armed figures emerging, all heading for Slip 47. Ethan led Victoria away from the main dock, using the boats as cover. They could hear shouting behind them, Park's voice high and panicked, then sudden silence. Is he dead? Victoria asked. Probably, or worse, taken for interrogation. They reached the park where the helicopter waited. But as they approached, Ethan saw movement. Someone was already there, standing beside the aircraft with casual confidence. Ashford. Mr. Cole, he said pleasantly. Ms. Lane, so nice to see you both alive. He wasn't alone. 4 men emerged from the shadows, weapons drawn but not quite aimed. Yet. Eventful evening, Ashford continued. First the lobby, now this. You've caused quite a stir. Just doing my job, Ethan replied, calculating angles and distances. 5 targets spread out professionally. Victoria beside him, no cover within reach. Bad odds. Ah, yes, your job. Tell me what exactly is your job, because I've been looking into you, Mr. Cole, and you're quite the enigma. Janitor, federal agent, pilot, hand-to-hand combat expert. It's almost like you're whatever you need to be. Right now I need to be leaving. I'm afraid that's not possible. You see, Miss Lane has something I need. Or rather, she now knows something I need. The algorithm's gone, Victoria said. Park's probably dead and the secret died with him. Perhaps, but you were just with him for several minutes, long enough for him to share certain details, like that paper you're holding. Victoria's hand tightened on the paper with Park's numbers. This is nothing. Random numbers. Then you won't mind sharing? Actually, I would. Ashford sighed. Ms. Lane, I've tried to be civilized about this, but my employers are not patient people. They want results. Either you give me that paper or things become unpleasant. Things are already unpleasant, Ethan observed. You have no idea how unpleasant they can become. That's when they heard it, helicopter rotors approaching fast. Not one aircraft, but several searchlights blazing through the night sky. Federal agents, a voice boomed through a loudspeaker. Everyone on the ground now. Ashford's team hesitated, looking to their leader for guidance. It was the moment Ethan had been waiting for. He grabbed Victoria and dove behind a concrete planter as the world exploded into chaos. The FBI tactical teams fast roped from their helicopters' boots, hitting the ground with practiced precision. Ashford's men opened fire muzzle flashes, lighting up the park like deadly fireworks. The federal agents responded with overwhelming force. In the middle of it all, Ethan and Victoria crawled toward the stolen helicopter. Bullets whined overhead, chewing through trees and benches. Someone threw a flashbang grenade, the detonation turning night into blinding day for a split second. "This is insane!" Victoria shouted over the gunfire. "Welcome to my world," Ethan replied, pulling her behind the helicopter's landing gear. He could see Ashford falling back with 2 of his men disciplined, even in retreat. The FBI was winning through sheer numbers, but it was costing them. At least 2 agents were down, their teammates dragging them to cover. The stolen helicopter's fuel tank took a round aviation fuel spilling onto the ground. One spark, and they'd all be incinerated. "We need to move," Ethan said. "Where we're surrounded." She was right. FBI on one side, what was left of Ashford's team on the other, and Chen's people were probably minutes away. That's when Ethan saw him. Marcus positioned on a rooftop 200 yards away with a rifle. Their eyes met across the distance, and Marcus gave a slight nod. "When I say run, you run," Ethan told Victoria. "Straight toward the lake. Don't stop. Don't look back." "What about you?" "I'll be right behind you." Marcus's rifle spoke the shot, taking out the searchlight on the lead FBI helicopter. In the sudden darkness, Ethan pushed Victoria. "Run!" They sprinted through the chaos using the confusion as cover. Behind them, the stolen helicopter's fuel found an ignition source. Maybe a hot round. Maybe a deliberately thrown flare. The explosion shook the ground, a ball of fire rising into the night sky. The blast knocked them forward, Ethan covering Victoria with his body as debris rained down. His ears were ringing, vision blurred, but he forced himself up, pulling her with him. The marina was just ahead, boats rocking from the explosion's shockwave. Ethan spotted what he was looking for, a small speedboat keys still in the ignition. Probably belonged to someone who'd come to check on their yacht and fled when the shooting started. "Get in," he ordered Victoria. She collapsed into the passenger seat, clutching Park's paper like a lifeline. Ethan started the engine, casting off the lines with quick, efficient movements. They were pulling away from the dock when Chen appeared at the water's edge. She didn't shoot, didn't shout. She just watched them go with those cold, calculating eyes. Then she raised her phone to her ear, and Ethan knew this wasn't over. It had barely begun. The speedboat cut through the dark water, Chicago's skyline glowing behind them. Victoria was shaking, shock finally setting in. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere safe." Does that place exist? Ethan thought about Emma hopefully asleep in the safe house in Wisconsin. He thought about the paper in Victoria's hand, potentially holding the key to destroying a technology that should never have existed. He thought about the bodies piling up, the global powers converging on Chicago, the war that was about to erupt over mathematics and ambition. "We'll make it exist," he said. Behind them, the fire from the helicopter reflected off the water like a funeral pyre for the old world. Ahead lay darkness and uncertainty, but also possibility. The boat disappeared into the night, two people carrying the weight of a secret that could change everything, pursued by enemies who would stop at nothing to possess it. And somewhere in Wisconsin, a 7-year-old girl slept peacefully, unaware that her father was fighting to make sure she grew up in a world where some weapons were too dangerous to exist. The speedboat's engine hummed through the darkness as Ethan navigated by memory and instinct. The further they got from shore, the more the city lights looked like dying stars. Victoria hadn't spoken for 10 minutes, her knuckles white as she gripped both the seat and Park's paper. "We can't run forever," she finally said. "We don't need forever, just long enough." Long enough for what? To make them believe the algorithm is gone. She turned to look at him, her face pale in the boat's dim running lights. "But it's not gone. This kill switch, if it's real, if it works, it's just another version of the weapon. Which is why we're going to destroy it too, after we use it." "Use it how?" Ethan adjusted their course, aiming for a point on the shore he'd scouted weeks ago. "Every major intelligence agency in the world is about to converge on Chicago. They'll tear the city apart looking for you, for Park, for any trace of the algorithm. But what if we give them something else to focus on? Like what? Like proof that the algorithm is already being used against them." Victoria was quiet for a moment, processing. "You want to use the kill switch to crash their own systems. Make them think someone else has the algorithm and is attacking them. Mutual paranoia. They'll turn on each other, accuse each other of stealing it. While they're fighting among themselves, we disappear. That's insane. That's geopolitics." The shoreline was approaching a stretch of private beach north of the city. Ethan had identified it during his reconnaissance as a potential extraction point. No cameras, no regular patrols, just wealthy estates whose owners were usually absent in October. He beached the speedboat and helped Victoria onto the sand. She was shivering, whether from cold or shock, he couldn't tell. Probably both. "There's a car," he said, pointing to a small service road. "Half-a-mile walk." They trudged through the sand in silence, then through a patch of woods that separated the beach from civilization. The car was where he'd left it 3 weeks ago. Another nondescript sedan registration clean tank, full emergency supplies in the trunk. "You really did plan for everything," Victoria observed. "Not everything. I didn't plan for Park's betrayal, or for you to actually be innocent. You thought I was guilty. I thought you were complicit. The Mumbai operation, the dead Chinese scientists, it had your authorization all over it. I authorized the acquisition of research. I didn't know people would die. In this game, people always die. The only question is how many." They drove in silence for 20 minutes, Ethan taking a circuitous route that would confuse any surveillance. Finally, he pulled into a truck stop, parking between two semis that would block them from satellite view. "I need to make a call, so," he said. He used the truck stop's payphone, an ancient relic that still worked, and dialed a number he'd memorized 15 years ago. It rang 3 times. "This better be important," a gravelly voice answered. "It's Shepard. I need a favor." "Jesus Christ, Ethan, you're supposed to be dark." "Plans changed. I need you to leak something to the intelligence community." "What kind of something?" "The kind that makes everyone panic. Remember the theoretical work on quantum encryption from the Prague conference? The stuff that was supposed to be impossible. It's not impossible. It exists and it's in play. I need you to make everyone believe someone's about to use it." There was a long pause. "That would start a war. It would prevent one. Trust me on this. This is about the Chicago situation. You know about that. Kid, half the intelligence world knows about it. There's a Chinese MSS team, Russian SVR Mossad, and at least 3 private military companies converging on your location. Whatever you've stepped in, it's big. Big enough that it needs to disappear." Another pause. "What do you need?" 48 hours. Make them chase ghosts for 48 hours. And then the algorithm ceases to exist. You found it. I found the man who created it. He's probably dead by now, and the secret died with him. Probably isn't, certainly. It's the best I can offer. The man on the other end sighed. You're going to owe me for this. Add it to my tab. Ethan hung up and returned to the car. Victoria was staring at Park's numbers, trying to make sense of them. It's not just a number, she said. Look at the pattern. It's a sequence, but there's something hidden in it. Hidden how? James was paranoid, but he was also brilliant. He wouldn't just write down something this important without encoding it. She held the paper up to the light. These aren't random. They're coordinates. Ethan looked closer. She was right. When separated properly, the numbers could be latitude and longitude. Wisconsin, he said, recognizing the general area. These coordinates are in Wisconsin. He has a cabin there, his retreat when he needed to think. He used to joke that his best ideas came when he was fishing. Ethan's blood went cold. The coordinates were less than 20 miles from his safe house. From Emma. We need to go, he said, starting the engine. To Wisconsin. To finish this. They drove through the night, the highway empty except for long-haul truckers and the occasional state trooper. Ethan kept checking the mirrors looking for surveillance, but they seemed to be clear. For now. Victoria dozed fitfully in the passenger seat, exhaustion finally overwhelming adrenaline. Ethan used the quiet to think to plan. The coordinates could be a trap, Park's final manipulation. Or they could be something else. A dead man's switch, a hidden cache of information, the real algorithm. His phone, the burner Marcus had given him, vibrated. A text. Package safe. Visitors came calling but left empty-handed. Someone had tried to get to Emma. Marcus had stopped them, but the fact that they'd found the safe house meant Ethan's network had been compromised. After 15 years of careful cultivation, his safety net was shredding. They crossed into Wisconsin as dawn was breaking, pink light spreading across farmland and forest. Victoria stirred, blinking in confusion before remembering where she was. How long was I asleep? 3 hours. You should have woken me. You need rest too. I'll rest when this is over. She studied him in the morning light. Do you ever stop, ever just be normal? I tried normal once, got married, had a kid, pretended I was just another suburban dad. What happened? Cancer happened. Sarah died 2 years ago. Reminded me that you can't protect people from everything no matter how good you are at violence. I'm sorry. Don't be. Sarah knew who I was, what I did. She made me promise to keep doing it after she was gone. Said the world needed people like me even if it didn't know it. People like you. Shepherds. People who keep the wolves from the sheep. And which am I, wolf or sheep? Ethan glanced at her. I haven't decided yet. The GPS led them down increasingly rural roads from highway to two-lane to gravel to dirt. The trees closed in autumn colors, brilliant in the morning sun. Finally, they reached the coordinates, a small lake mirror, smooth with a modest cabin on the shore. That's it, Victoria said. James's retreat. Ethan parked but didn't get out immediately. He studied the cabin, the surrounding woods, looking for signs of surveillance or ambush. Everything seemed quiet, but quiet could be deceptive. Stay here, he told Victoria. We've been through this. This is different. If Park left something here, it could be protected. Traps alarms worse. He approached the cabin carefully, noting the security cameras disabled, the motion sensors offline, and the steel-reinforced door unlocked. Someone had been here recently and wanted visitors. Inside was chaos. Computers torn apart, papers scattered, furniture overturned. Someone had searched the place thoroughly, but apparently hadn't found what they were looking for. But Ethan wasn't looking in the obvious places. He was thinking like Park, paranoid, brilliant, always planning 3 moves ahead. The man wouldn't hide something valuable where anyone could find it. He found it in the fireplace, not in the chimney or behind the bricks, but in the ashes themselves. A fireproof case designed to look like burnt wood. Inside was a single USB drive and a note. If you're reading this, I'm dead, and you have the coordinates. The drive contains everything, the complete algorithm, the kill switch, and evidence of everyone who tried to steal it. Do what I couldn't. Make it disappear forever. JP. Ethan pocketed the drive and returned to the car. Victoria was on the phone, his burner. Who are you calling? She handed him the phone. Someone who says he's your friend. Marcus's voice. We have a problem. Your daughter's asking for you, and I've got at least 3 surveillance teams circling the safe house. I can hold them off, but not forever. How long, sir? Maybe 2 hours before they decide to come in hard. 2 hours. Not enough time to get their deal with the algorithm and extract Emma safely. Marcus, I need you to do something for me. Name it. Tell Emma I love her. Tell her the protection charm worked. Ethan. And when they come, don't fight. Let them take her. Are you insane? I know what I'm doing. They won't hurt her as long as they think she's leverage. Just make sure she knows I'm coming for her. This is a bad play, Shepard. It's the only play. 2 hours. Start the clock. He hung up and looked at Victoria. We're going to make a trade. Emma for the algorithm. No, you for Emma. Victoria's eyes widened. What? They want you because they think you have the algorithm, so we're going to give them what they want. You and the real algorithm on this drive. But you said we were going to destroy it. We are. But first we're going to use it. He held up the drive. Park didn't just record the algorithm. He recorded everyone who tried to steal it. Names, organizations, communications, everything. So we're going to send it to everyone simultaneously. Every intelligence agency, every news organization, every government. Complete transparency. Let them all see how dirty they've been, how many people died for mathematical equations. That would cause chaos. That would cause accountability. And in the chaos, you and Emma disappear. New identities, new lives, far from all this. What about you? I'll be the one who released it. They'll come after me. They'll kill you. Probably, but you and Emma will be safe. The algorithm will be public worthless as a weapon because everyone will have it, and the people who killed for it will be exposed. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached over and took the drive from his hand. No, she said simply. Victoria, no. I'm not letting you sacrifice yourself for my mistakes, and I'm not letting them use your daughter as leverage. She pulled out her phone, her real one, the one she'd turned off hours ago. I'm CEO of one of the most powerful corporations in America. Time I acted like it. She turned on the phone, ignoring the flood of messages, and made a call. Charles, it's Victoria. Yes, I'm alive. Listen carefully. I need you to call an emergency board meeting right now. I don't care what time it is. Because in 1 hour, I'm going to release information that will either destroy the company or make us indispensable to national security. Yes, I'm serious. 1 hour. She hung up and made another call. Senator Morrison, Victoria Lane, yes, that Victoria Lane. I have information about foreign intelligence operations on U.S. soil that you need to know about. Millennium Park, 1 hour. Bring Homeland Security. What are you doing? Ethan demanded. Something you wouldn't. I'm going public. Press conference live stream the works. I'm going to stand in front of cameras and tell the world about the algorithm, about the deaths, about the intelligence agencies fighting over it. And then I'm going to destroy it. Publicly. They'll kill you before you get the first word out. No, they won't, because they'll all be watching each other, making sure no one else gets it first. And because you're going to be there, making sure they don't. Victoria, your daughter needs her father, Ethan. She already lost her mother. She's not losing you too. She held up the drive. This thing has caused enough orphans. Before he could stop her, she was out of the car and walking toward the lake. For a moment, he thought she was going to throw the drive in the water. Instead, she knelt at the shore and pulled out Park's paper with the numbers. The kill switch, she said. It's not just a number. It's a mathematical proof that the algorithm contradicts itself. If we release both together, the algorithm and its own impossibility, it becomes useless. A curiosity instead of a weapon. You're betting everything on Park's math. I'm betting everything on Park's conscience. He was a good man once before fear and greed corrupted him. This was his redemption. Ethan's phone buzzed. Marcus, 90 minutes. Time was running out. Emma was waiting. The world was watching. 1 hour, Ethan said. We do your press conference, but we do it my way. Which is, we make them all come to us. Every player, every agency, every killer who's been hunting you. We put them all in one place at one time. And then we show the world what happens when people fight over weapons that shouldn't exist. Victoria stood brushing dirt from her knees. You're going to start a war. No, Ethan said, thinking of Emma, of Sarah, of all the invisible people who just wanted to live their lives in peace. I'm going to end one. The drive back to Chicago felt like descending into a war zone. Every mile closer to the city brought more helicopters overhead, more unmarked vehicles on the roads, more evidence that the world's intelligence agencies were converging on one point. Ethan counted at least 3 surveillance drones following their car, maintaining perfect formation at different altitudes. They know where we are, Victoria said, watching the drones through the sunroof. They've known for the last 20 miles. They're not stopping us because they want to see where we're going. And where are we going? Millennium Park, the pavilion, exactly where you told them. Victoria checked her phone. The messages were pouring in: board members, senators, journalists, security agencies. The whole world seemed to know something massive was about to happen. Charles says the board is assembled, she reported. They're threatening to remove me as CEO if I don't appear immediately. Let them try. After today, Aurora Corporation will either be the most valuable company in the world or it won't exist at all. They entered the city proper, and the presence of law enforcement became overwhelming. Every corner had police, every building had spotters on the roof. The park itself was surrounded by barriers, media vans, creating a secondary perimeter around the official one. Ethan pulled into an underground garage 2 blocks away. Before they got out, he reached into the back seat and pulled out a tactical vest, sliding it over Victoria's blazer. This won't stop a rifle round, but it might buy you seconds, he said, comforting. I need you to understand something. Once we step out there, once you start talking, there's no stopping. They'll try everything: threats, bribes, violence. The moment you show weakness, you're dead. I ran a Fortune 500 company, Ethan. I know about not showing weakness. This is different. In business, showing weakness costs you money. Here it costs you everything. His phone buzzed. Marcus. 60 minutes. They're getting antsy. Victoria saw his expression. Emma? She's holding on. Marcus will keep her safe as long as he can. We could call this off, trade the algorithm for her. No, you were right. She already lost her mother. She deserves a father who didn't sell out the world to save her. They walked through the garage toward the street, Ethan automatically checking corners and sight lines. As they emerged into daylight, the scale of what was happening became clear. The park was packed not just with law enforcement and media, but with crowds of civilians drawn by social media rumors that something historic was about to happen. Miss Lane! A reporter rushed forward, microphone extended. Is it true you have information about foreign espionage? Can you confirm the attack at Aurora Tower? What's your relationship with James Park? Ethan moved between Victoria and the press, creating space with his presence alone. But he could see the real threats in the crowd, professional operators trying to blend in as journalists or civilians. Chen was there near the fountain, surrounded by what looked like a Chinese trade delegation, but were certainly MSS agents. Ashford stood by the media vans, his arm in a sling from the firefight at the marina, his team spread out in tactical positions. And there were others. Russians near the art installation, Israelis by the garden, Germans, French, British. A United Nations of intelligence agencies, all armed, all ready to kill for what Victoria carried. The pavilion itself had been cordoned off with a small platform erected for press conferences. Senator Morrison was already there, flanked by Homeland Security agents who looked deeply uncomfortable with the situation. Ms. Lane, the senator said as they approached, I hope you understand the gravity of what you're doing. Better than you know, Senator. Morrison's eyes flicked to Ethan. And you are nobody important, Ethan replied, scanning the crowd. He spotted 3 sniper positions, maybe more. The concert hall's acoustic panels would provide some cover, but not much. Victoria stepped up to the microphones and the crowd fell silent. Hundreds of phones rose to record. The world was watching. My name is Victoria Lane, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the speakers. I'm the CEO of Aurora Corporation. and I'm here to tell you about a technology that has already killed 12 people and nearly started World War III. The crowd erupted in questions, but she raised her hand for silence. 6 months ago, my company acquired research from a laboratory in Mumbai. We believed we were purchasing theoretical work on quantum computing. What we actually acquired was something far more dangerous, an algorithm capable of breaking any encryption system in the world. Ethan saw the reactions ripple through the crowd. The intelligence operatives tensed hands, moving toward concealed weapons. This was the confirmation they'd been waiting for. The algorithm was developed by Dr. James Park, my chief technology officer, Victoria continued. Last night, he was murdered by agents of a foreign government seeking to steal it. That wasn't entirely true. Park might still be alive somewhere being interrogated, but it served the narrative. Multiple intelligence agencies have attempted to acquire this technology through violence and coercion. They've threatened me, attacked my employees, and now they're holding a 7-year-old girl hostage to force compliance. Ethan's jaw tightened. She wasn't supposed to mention Emma. That girl's father saved my life last night, Victoria said, looking directly at one of the cameras. He's standing here beside me, having chosen to protect the world rather than save his daughter. That's the kind of person these agencies are willing to destroy for their weapons. The crowd was murmuring now, phones flashing as people tried to identify Ethan. He kept his face neutral, but inside he was calculating rapidly. Victoria had just painted a target on both of them, but she'd also made it politically impossible for anyone to move against them publicly. The algorithm exists, Victoria announced, holding up the USB drive. It's here, complete and functional. The tension in the crowd ratcheted up to breaking point. Ethan saw fingers on triggers, bodies coiling for action. One wrong word and the park would become a battlefield. But so does this. She held up Park's paper. The mathematical proof that the algorithm is fundamentally flawed, a kill switch that makes it useless. You're lying, Sao, someone shouted from the crowd, Chen stepping forward. The algorithm works. We've seen the test. Yes, it works, Victoria agreed, for exactly 72 hours. Then the mathematical contradiction compounds and the system collapses. Dr. Park built in his own insurance policy. It was a brilliant lie, Ethan realized. Impossible to disprove without testing, and no one would risk implementing a system that might self-destruct. I'm going to release both the algorithm and its kill switch, Victoria announced, to everyone. Every government, every news organization, every university. Complete transparency. You can't do that. Morrison stepped forward. That's classified technology. Classified by whom, Senator? The American government that doesn't officially know it exists. The Chinese who stole the original research. The Russians who've been trying to kidnap me. Victoria's voice rose. This technology belongs to no one because it's too dangerous for anyone. She pulled out her phone, connected it to the USB drive. I'm uploading everything to a distributed network. In 60 seconds, the entire world will have access. The reaction was immediate. Chen's team started moving forward. Ashford's men raised their weapons. The Homeland Security agents formed a protective circle, not sure who they were protecting from whom. Stop! A new voice cut through the chaos, male authoritative with a slight electronic distortion. Everyone turned toward the concert hall, where a figure emerged from the acoustic panels. It was Park, very much alive, but looking like he'd been through hell. His clothes were torn, his face bruised, but his eyes were alert and focused. James? Victoria's shock was genuine. You're alive. Barely. He walked forward slowly, hands visible to show he was unarmed. They tortured me for hours, wanted the algorithm, but I held out because I knew you'd come here, knew you'd try to release it. It needs to be destroyed, James. No, it needs to be controlled. Park's voice grew stronger. Not by governments or corporations, but by an international body. Scientists, ethicists, people who understand its implications. That's naive, Ethan said, speaking for the first time. The moment you create that body, it becomes a target. Every nation will try to corrupt it, control it, destroy it, if they can't have it. Then what's your solution? Park demanded. Let it disappear into black sites and secret programs. My solution is this. Ethan pulled out his own phone, showing a timer. 45 minutes ago, I sent the complete algorithm to a dead man's switch. If I don't reset it every hour, it releases automatically to every major news outlet in the world. But here's the thing, I also sent the kill switch to a different system with the same setup. Everyone stared at him. If anyone tries to use the algorithm, the kill switch activates. If anyone tries to suppress it, both release. Mutually assured transparency. That's insane, Morrison said. That's balance, Ethan corrected. The same principle that kept nuclear weapons from ending the world. Everyone has it so no one can use it. Chen stepped forward, her composure cracking. You don't have the authority. I have Emma. The voice came from the crowd, and Ethan's blood froze. A man emerged holding his daughter's hand. Not roughly, not threateningly, just walking with her like they were taking a stroll. Emma looked confused but unharmed, her backpack bouncing with each step. Daddy? She started to run toward him, but the man held her back gently. Not yet, little one, the man said. He was older, distinguished, with the kind of face that belonged in boardrooms or Senate hearings. Mr. Cole, Mrs. Lane, Dr. Park, my name is Director Harrison, NSA, and we need to discuss this like civilized people. Let her go, Ethan said, his voice deadly quiet. Of course, as soon as we resolve this situation. Harrison smiled at Emma. Your daughter is delightful, by the way. She's been telling me about her protection charm, how it keeps you safe. Emma held up her wrist, showing a matching bracelet she'd made. I made one for me too, so we're both protected. The innocence of it, the pure trust in her voice, nearly broke Ethan's composure. Every instinct screamed at him to act to violence, to doing whatever it took to get her safe. But that would start a bloodbath with Emma at the center. What do you want? Victoria asked Harrison. What I've always wanted. Stability, security, order. Harrison gestured to the crowd of intelligence operatives. Look around you. The world's shadow armies all in one place, ready to kill each other over mathematics. This is what your transparency brings: chaos. This is what secrecy brings, Victoria countered. People willing to murder children for advantages that don't even work. Oh, but it does work. Harrison pulled out a tablet showing streams of code. We've been testing Park's algorithm for weeks. No kill switch, no 72-hour limit. You lied. Victoria's confidence wavered. That's impossible, James said. James told you what you wanted to hear. Harrison looked at Park with something like pity. He gave you a version with a kill switch, but the original, the pure algorithm that's quite real and quite functional. Park's face had gone pale. You don't understand. Without the safeguards, it's a weapon that ensures American dominance for the next century. Harrison's grip on Emma's hand tightened slightly. Which is why Mr. Cole is going to disable his dead man's switch and give us the only copy. No, Ethan said simply. No, your daughter. My daughter deserves to grow up in a world where governments don't kidnap children to steal weapons. Ethan pulled out his phone, showing the timer. 30 minutes until automatic release. You can kill us all, take the drive, torture the information out of us. But in 30 minutes, the world knows everything. Including that America has the algorithm. Including that America murdered civilians to get it. It was a standoff, the kind that Ethan had seen too many times in too many places. Everyone armed, everyone ready, everyone waiting for someone else to blink first. That's when Emma did something unexpected. She pulled free from Harrison's grip and walked straight to Ethan, wrapping her arms around his waist. It's okay, Daddy, she said. The protection charm worked. You came for me. The simple faith in her voice, the absolute trust changed everything. Ethan knelt down, hugging her tight, and made his decision. Victoria, give me the drive. She hesitated, then handed it over. Ethan stood Emma, still holding his hand, and addressed the crowd. This ends now. Not with grand gestures or political statements, but with simple truth. He held up the drive. This contains the algorithm, the kill switch, and something else: every communication, every order, every crime committed in pursuit of this technology. Names, dates, authorizations. Harrison's face went white. So did Chen's and Ashford's and a dozen others. Dr. Park kept very good records, Ethan continued. Every bribe, every threat, every murder, it's all here. You release that you're dead, Chen said flatly. I'm probably dead anyway. But my daughter isn't. and neither are the thousands of other innocents who would die when you all start fighting over this thing. He looked at Emma, then at Victoria, then at the crowd of phones recording everything. So here's what happens. The algorithm gets destroyed, publicly. The evidence of crimes gets sealed for 50 years, long enough for everyone involved to be dead or irrelevant, and everyone walks away. That's not acceptable, Harrison started. It's the only deal on the table. Ethan held up his phone. 25 minutes. The crowd was stirring now, civilians realizing they were in the middle of something far more dangerous than a press conference. Parents pulled children back, people started edging toward exits, but the cameras kept rolling. Victoria stepped forward. I support Mr. Cole's proposal. Aurora Corporation will withdraw all claims to the technology and cooperate fully with any investigation. As do I, Park added, surprising everyone. I created this monster. I should help kill it. Harrison looked around at the other intelligence operatives, reading faces, calculating odds. You're asking us to trust each other. That's not how this works. No, Ethan agreed, but mutually assured destruction is. He lifted Emma into his arms, feeling her weight, her warmth, her life. Everyone loses or everyone walks away. Choose. The silence stretched tense as a wire about to snap. Then Chen laughed, bitter and short. The Americans already have it anyway, she said. We all know it. This theater is just to make us complicit in our own defeat. The Americans have nothing, Harrison said, but his denial rang hollow. Then prove it, Victoria challenged. Destroy the drive. Here, now, show the world that America doesn't need stolen weapons to maintain security. It was a brilliant move, Ethan realized. She'd turned Harrison's patriotism against him. To refuse would be to admit American weakness. Harrison stood frozen, calculating. Around him, hands rested on weapons, everyone waiting for a signal, a word, a twitch that would start the killing. Emma whispered in Ethan's ear, Daddy, are the bad people going to hurt us? No, baby girl, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. They're going to remember what it's like to be good. Something in his voice and the absolute conviction of it seemed to reach through the tension. Harrison's shoulders sagged slightly. Chen's hand moved away from her weapon. Even Ashford seemed to deflate. 15 minutes, Ethan announced. Do it, Harrison said suddenly. Destroy it. Director Mki, one of his agents started. That's an order. We don't negotiate with terrorists and we don't need stolen technology to protect America. It was face-saving bullshit, but it was enough. Ethan set Emma down and placed the drive on the ground. He pulled out a small thermite charge from his pocket, because of course he carried thermite, and attached it to the drive. Everyone might want to step back, he advised. The crowd, intelligence operatives and civilians alike, moved away from the small device that had nearly started a war. Ethan activated the charge and retreated, pulling Emma and Victoria with him. The thermite ignited with brilliant white light, burning at over 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The drive didn't just melt, it vaporized, leaving only a small crater in the concrete and the acrid smell of burnt electronics. It's done, Ethan said, then held up his phone and disabled the dead man's switch. All of it. But Chen wasn't satisfied. The knowledge still exists in Park's head in classified servers. No, Park interrupted. It doesn't. He pulled out a pill bottle, showing it to the crowd. Experimental neurotoxin, very specific. It targets recent memory formation, particularly mathematical concepts. I took it an hour ago. Everyone stared at him. In about 10 minutes, I won't remember anything about the algorithm. Or much of the last year, actually. It was the only way to be sure. You destroyed your own mind, Victoria asked, horrified. I destroyed the part that created weapons, Park corrected. I'll still remember how to tie my shoes, how to cook pasta, the important things. Already Ethan could see the confusion creeping into Park's eyes, the slight uncertainty in his movements. The man had lobotomized himself to save the world from his creation. Then we're done here, Harrison said. He looked at Emma, and for a moment his official mask slipped. I'm sorry about your involvement, young lady. That was regrettable. Emma, with the devastating honesty of children, said, You're not really sorry, but that's okay. Daddy says sometimes people do bad things for good reasons. Harrison actually flinched. Without another word, he turned and walked away, his agents falling in behind him. One by one, the other intelligence groups dispersed, melting back into the crowd and disappearing into the city. Chen paused beside Ethan. This isn't over. There will be other algorithms, other weapons, and other janitors to stop them, Ethan replied. She almost smiled at that, then vanished into the crowd. Ashford was the last to leave. He approached Victoria, favoring his injured arm. You played this well, but you've made enemies today. Powerful ones. I've made the only choice that mattered, Victoria said. Perhaps, but choices have consequences. Watch your back, Ms. Lane. As he walked away, Victoria called after him. Was it worth it? All the death, all the violence for something that doesn't even exist anymore. Ashford paused, looked back. Ask me in 50 years when we see what China does with their quantum computers while America falls behind. Or ask the families of the 12 dead scientists, Ethan said. Ashford had no answer to that. He disappeared into the crowd, another ghost in a city full of them. The park was emptying now, civilians hurrying away from whatever they'd just witnessed. The media was in a frenzy trying to make sense of what they'd seen. Victoria was surrounded by reporters, but she wasn't answering questions yet. She was watching Park, who stood by the fountain looking lost. James, she said gently. He looked at her, confusion clear in his eyes. I'm sorry, do I know you? I seem to be I can't quite remember how I got here. You're safe, she told him. That's all that matters. I feel like I've forgotten something important. Nothing that can't be replaced. She arranged for one of Aurora's security team to take him to a hospital, watching as the man who'd nearly destroyed the world for his genius wandered away, freed from the burden of his own brilliance. That was a brave thing he did, Ethan said. That was a necessary thing, Victoria corrected. The question is, what now? Now you rebuild your company without secret weapons programs. Now you face whatever investigations come. Now you try to be better. And you... Ethan looked down at Emma, who was playing with her protection bracelet, seemingly unbothered by the chaos she'd just witnessed. The resilience of children never ceased to amaze him. Now I take my daughter home. That's it. You just walk away. My job was to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. Today that was you. Tomorrow it'll be someone else. But after everything, I'm still just a janitor who's good at other things. Victoria studied him for a long moment. You know, Aurora Corporation could use someone like you, head of security maybe. The pay would be significantly better than janitor wages. I've seen what your security budget is. You couldn't afford me. Try me. Ethan almost smiled at that. Thanks, but no. Emma needs stability, normalcy. She needs a father who comes home every night, not one who's always looking for the next threat. And you, what do you need? It was a good question. For 15 years, he'd defined himself by the mission, by the next crisis, the next enemy. But looking at Emma, seeing her laugh at something on her phone, he realized what he needed was simpler than that. Time, he said. Time with her before she grows up and realizes her father isn't the hero she thinks he is. You're wrong about that, Victoria said. Today you were exactly the hero she thinks you are. Before Ethan could respond, Senator Morrison approached, flanked by federal agents. Mr. Cole, Ms. Lane, we're going to need statements. Both of you. Later, Ethan said. My daughter needs lunch and a nap. This is a matter of national security. No, it was a matter of national security. Now it's just paperwork. He picked up Emma, who wrapped her arms around his neck. You know where to find me. I'll be the invisible guy pushing a mop at Aurora Tower. He started walking away, but Morrison called after him. You can't just walk away from this. There will be investigations hearings. I saved the world from algorithmic warfare and prevented at least 3 intelligence agencies from starting World War III, Ethan said without turning around. I think I've earned a sick day. Emma giggled at that, and they kept walking, leaving the chaos behind. But Victoria caught up with them at the edge of the park. Ethan, wait. She pulled out a business card, pressed it into his free hand. My direct line. Not for Aurora business, just if you ever need anything. You and Emma both. He looked at the card, then at her. You did good today. I had a good teacher. You had good instincts. Don't lose them in boardrooms and stock prices. And you don't lose yourself in trying to be invisible. They stood there for a moment, two people who'd been through hell together and come out the other side. Then Emma tugged on Ethan's collar. "Daddy, I'm hungry. Can we get pizza?" "Whatever you want, baby girl." As they walked away, Emma asked, "Was that lady your friend?" "Yeah, I think she is." "Good. You need more friends. Uncle Marcus doesn't count because he's grumpy." Ethan actually laughed at that, the sound surprising him. It had been a long time since he'd laughed without calculation, without purpose. It felt good. Behind them, the park was swarming with investigators, reporters, officials trying to make sense of what had happened. The algorithm was gone, but its impact would ripple for years. There would be hearings, investigations, recriminations. The shadow world had been exposed to daylight, if only for a moment, and that exposure would have consequences. But that was tomorrow's problem. Today, Ethan Cole was just a father taking his daughter for pizza, walking through Chicago like any other family. The protection charm on his wrist caught the afternoon sun, its blue threads bright against his skin. "Daddy?" Emma said as they waited for a crosswalk. "Yeah. You saved everyone today, didn't you? How do you know that?" "Because that's what you do. You're a shepherd, and you protect the sheep from the wolves." Ethan looked down at her surprised. "Where did you hear that?" "Mommy told me before she went to heaven. She said you were special, that you kept people safe even when they didn't know they needed it." The light changed and they crossed the street, but Ethan's throat was tight with emotion. Sarah had understood him better than he'd ever realized. "Do you miss her?" Emma asked. "Every day." "Me too, but she said that was okay, that missing people means we loved them." "Your mom was pretty smart." "She also said you were stubborn and needed to learn to ask for help sometimes." That startled another laugh out of him. "That sounds like her." They reached the pizza place, a little neighborhood joint that had been there for 30 years. Nothing fancy, just good food and red checkered tablecloths. Ethan ordered Emma's favorite pepperoni with extra cheese, and they sat by the window watching the city go by. "Daddy, are we safe now?" Emma asked between bites. "For now, yeah. But not forever." Ethan considered lying, giving her the comfort of false certainty. But Emma deserved better than that. "No, not forever. There's always another threat, another problem. But that's okay." "Why?" "Because there are also people like us. People who stand up and say no when bad things try to happen. And as long as there are people like that, the world keeps spinning." Emma nodded solemnly, then brightened. "Like superheroes." "Sure, like superheroes, except we don't wear capes." "You could wear a cape. It would look cool with your janitor uniform." The image of himself mopping floors in a cape made Ethan smile. "I'll think about it." His phone buzzed. Marcus. "Package delivered safely, no complications. You owe me a beer, or 50. Ethan typed back, "Tonight, Giuseppe's. Bring your appetite." Getting soft shepherd. Pizza and beer instead of bullets and blood. Maybe that's not a bad thing. He put the phone away and focused on Emma, who was telling him about her latest art project at school. Normal, everyday conversation, the kind he'd missed during all those weeks of surveillance and subterfuge. Outside Chicago continued its daily chaos. But for the first time in years, Ethan wasn't watching for threats, wasn't calculating angles and distances. He was just present here with his daughter, eating pizza and planning their evening. The protection charm on his wrist caught his eye, and he remembered Victoria's words about not losing himself in invisibility. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was time to stop hiding, to be more than just the ghost in the building. His phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize, but the area code was Washington, D.C. "Mr. Cole? This is Deputy Director Sarah Matthews, NSA. We need to discuss your future." "My future involves pizza and a bedtime story for my daughter." "I meant your professional future. Your handler speaks highly of you, and after today's events..." "After today's events, I'm retired." There was a pause. "You're too valuable to retire." "I'm too tired not to. Find another shepherd, Deputy Director. This one's done." "What if we need you?" Ethan looked at Emma, who was drawing on a napkin with crayons the restaurant provided. She was making another picture of him as a hero, this time with a cape. "Then you know where to find me. I'll be the invisible guy protecting people who don't know they need it. Just don't expect me to answer the phone." He hung up before she could respond. There would be consequences for that, but he'd deal with them later. For now, he had pizza to eat and a daughter to raise. Emma held up her drawing. Look, Daddy, it's you saving the day. In the picture, a figure in blue stood between smaller figures and dark shapes with red eyes. Simple, childish, but capturing something essential about what had happened today. It's perfect, he told her. Can we frame it? Put it next to Mommy's picture. Absolutely. They finished their pizza as the sun set over Chicago, painting the skyline in shades of orange and gold. The city looked peaceful from here, no hint of the violence and chaos that had nearly erupted. But Ethan knew better. Peace was always temporary, always fragile, always one algorithm or weapon away from shattering. But that was okay, because as long as there were people willing to stand in the gap to be shepherds against the wolves, the peace would hold. Maybe not forever, but for today. And today was enough. 6 months later, Aurora Tower gleamed in the spring sunshine, its lobby filled with the usual morning rush of executives and employees. But something had changed since that night in October. The security was real now, not just for show. The guards actually watched their monitors. The emergency exits were tested weekly, and on the wall near the reception desk hung a framed child's drawing, a figure in blue, holding a mop like a sword protecting others from danger. Ethan Cole pushed his mop across the marble floor, the rhythm as familiar as breathing. He wore the same blue coveralls, used the same yellow wet floor sign, followed the same routes through the building. To most people, nothing had changed. He was still invisible, still just the janitor. But Victoria Lane saw him now. Every morning when she arrived, she nodded to him, a brief acknowledgement that spoke volumes. Sometimes she stopped to talk quick conversations about Emma, about the weather, about anything except algorithms and international conspiracies. Morning, Ethan, she said today, pausing by his mop bucket. Miss Lane. It's been 6 months. You can call me Victoria. Old habits, well, he replied, wringing out the mop. How's the congressional hearing going? She grimaced. 3 more days of testimony. They keep asking about the algorithm, about Park, about that night. They don't believe something that dangerous could just disappear. People never believe in simple solutions. Was it simple destroying the only thing that could have protected us from cyber warfare? Protection and control are just different words for the same trap. You did the right thing. She looked at the child's drawing on the wall. Emma's artwork. The security team framed it, said it was a reminder that heroes come in all uniforms. Smart kid, like her father. Before Ethan could respond, his phone buzzed. The number was one he'd given to exactly 3 people, his handler Marcus and Emma's school. Mr. Cole, this is Principal Williams. There's been an incident. His blood went cold. Is Emma hurt? No, she's fine. But there are some people here claiming to be federal agents. They say they need to speak with her about her father. Ethan was already moving, dropping the mop, heading for the exit. Victoria followed without hesitation. I'm on my way, he told the principal. Don't let them near her. Mr. Cole, they have badges. Badges can be faked. Keep her in your office. Lock the door. I'll be there in 10 minutes. He hung up and broke into a run, Victoria keeping pace despite her heels. I thought this was over, she said. It's never over, just dormant. They reached his car, not the invisible Honda anymore, but a reinforced SUV with bulletproof glass, a gift from Aurora Corporation's board after they learned the full story. Ethan drove with controlled aggression, taking corners at speeds that made Victoria grip the door handle. Who would come after Emma now, she asked. Someone who thinks I kept a copy of the algorithm, or someone who wants revenge, or someone who just wants leverage. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Doesn't matter who. They crossed the line. The elementary school was in suburban chaos when they arrived. Parents clustered outside teachers trying to maintain order, and 3 black SUVs parked in the fire lane. Ethan recognized the type government issue, but which government was the question? He walked through the front door like he owned the place. Victoria closed behind. The secretary tried to stop them, but Ethan just kept walking, following the path to the principal's office he'd memorized on Emma's first day. 3 people stood outside the office, 2 men in dark suits and a woman who looked familiar. It took him a moment to place her. Sarah Matthews, the deputy director who'd called him 6 months ago. Mr. Cole, she said calmly, we need to talk. You need to leave, now. There's been a development. Someone's claiming to have reconstructed the algorithm. They're threatening to release it unless certain demands are met. Not my problem. They specifically asked for you. Ethan studied her face, reading the tells he'd learned over 15 years of intelligence work. She was nervous but not lying, concerned but not desperate. This was real but not immediate. Emma stays out of it, he said. Of course. We would never... You already did. Coming to her school, frightening her. We didn't mean to frighten anyone. We just needed to find you quickly, and you haven't been answering your phone. Because I'm retired. The office door opened and Principal Williams peered out, looking relieved to see Ethan. Behind him, Emma sat at his desk drawing with remarkable calm for a 7-year-old who just had federal agents show up at her school. Daddy? She ran to him and he scooped her up, holding her tight. Hey, baby girl, you okay? They said they were your friends, but I remembered what you taught me about strangers with badges. That's my smart girl. Matthews stepped forward. Mr. Cole, please. Just hear us out. Not here. Not in front of her. Victoria spoke up. My office, 1 hour, and you come alone, Deputy Director. Matthews nodded. 1 hour. As they left, Emma whispered to Ethan, Are they the bad people? No, sweetheart, just confused people who forgot that some things are more important than secrets. Back at Aurora Tower, Ethan set Emma up in Victoria's private conference room with her homework and snacks while the adults met in the main office. Matthews had come alone as promised, carrying a tablet with classified markings. 3 days ago, someone sent this to 12 major intelligence agencies, she said, showing them a video. A figure in Shadow's voice distorted, but the message was clear. The Aurora algorithm still exists. I have reconstructed it from fragments from memories from the pieces your governments tried to hide. In 72 hours, I will release it to the highest bidder unless Ethan Cole delivers himself to coordinates I will provide. It's a bluff, Victoria said immediately. The algorithm was destroyed. Park's memories were erased. We thought so too, Matthews admitted, but they demonstrated a partial implementation. It broke through our test encryption in seconds. Ethan studied the video, looking for tells for mistakes. Something felt off about the whole thing. Play it again, he said. The video repeated, and this time he caught it. A reflection in a window behind the shadowed figure. A reflection he recognized. Son of a bitch, he muttered. What? Victoria leaned forward. It's Ashford. He's not dead or disappeared. He's trying to flush out anyone who might have kept a copy. Matthews frowned. You're certain? The watch on his wrist. You can see it in the reflection. Same Omega Seamaster he wore that night in the park. He's fishing, trying to create panic. But the demonstration could be faked, or he could have a partial reconstruction that only works on specific types of encryption. Either way, he doesn't have the full algorithm. How can you be sure? Ethan looked at Victoria, then back at Matthews. Because if he did, he wouldn't need me. He'd already be selling it. Matthews absorbed this, then asked the question Ethan had been expecting. Did you keep a copy? No. Cole. I said no, and even if I had, I wouldn't give it to you or anyone else. Then how do we respond to this threat? Victoria spoke up. You don't. You ignore it. Let the 72 hours pass, let him release whatever partial code he has. It'll be worthless without the mathematical framework Park destroyed. We can't just ignore... Yes, you can, Ethan interrupted, because the alternative is admitting the algorithm might still exist, which starts the whole circus again. Matthews stood to leave, then paused. You know, Cole, we could use someone like you back in the agency. You had someone like me. You used me to spy on American citizens and corporations. I'm done with that life. And if Ashford comes after you directly, after Emma, Ethan's expression went cold. Then he'll learn why I was the one they sent when diplomacy failed. After Matthews left, Victoria found Ethan in the conference room helping Emma with her math homework. The domesticity of it. The normalcy was almost surreal after their conversation about international threats and reconstructed weapons. You good? Victoria asked. I'm angry, Ethan admitted. 6 months of peace, and they can't leave it alone. Will you go if Ashford makes good on his threat? No, that's what he wants to draw me out to make me reveal if I have the algorithm. And do you... Ethan looked at her steadily. Would it matter if I did? Yes. Why? Because it would mean you've been lying to me for 6 months, and I thought we were past that. Ethan glanced at Emma, who was absorbed in her fractions, then back at Victoria. The algorithm is gone. Every copy, every fragment, every piece of code. I made sure of it. How say? Because I didn't trust anyone else to do it. Not the government, not you, not even myself. So I destroyed everything and made sure it could never be reconstructed. Including Park's notes. Especially Park's notes. He pulled out a lighter, the same one he'd carried for 15 years. Burned them that night after the park. The ashes went into Lake Michigan. Victoria studied him, then nodded. Good. The 72 hours passed without incident. Ashford never released anything, never made contact again. It had been a probe, just as Ethan suspected, trying to see who would panic, who would reveal hidden copies. Life returned to its new normal. Ethan pushed his mop through Aurora Tower. Emma went to school. Victoria testified before Congress. The world kept spinning without algorithms that could break any encryption. But Ethan stayed ready, because he knew deep in his bones that peace was always temporary. Somewhere out there, Ashford was planning his next move. Chen was rebuilding her network. Harrison was looking for the next weapon. And when they came, not if, but when Ethan Cole would be waiting. Just an invisible janitor with a mop protecting people who didn't know they needed it. The protection charm on his wrist had faded from blue to gray over the months worn from constant contact, but it still held together threads intertwined like the promise between father and daughter. "Daddy," Emma said one evening as he tucked her into bed, "will you always be a janitor?" "Maybe not always, but for now." "I think you're the best janitor in the world." "Why's that?" "Because you clean up more than just floors. You clean up the bad things too." Ethan kissed her forehead. "Get some sleep, baby girl. Love you more than all the stars in the sky. And I love you more than all the fish in the sea." As she drifted off to sleep, Ethan stood by her window watching the city lights. Somewhere out there, new threats were emerging, new weapons were being developed, new wars were being planned in shadow. But tonight, his daughter was safe. Tonight, the world was at peace. And for a shepherd, watching over his sheep tonight was enough.